just after you had, was this the next day, 2 days before?
There was an opening up for
30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Sounds
like-
But now they were.
Yeah.
They were in this wooded area.
Mr.
Come into
Atkinson.
that area.
Herman.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
And they were firing them.
Herman
Well, I
Atkinson.
took my compass out and I looked.
Superintendent of
Right
schools.
straight. Well, I was getting away, so
He
there's
told me, he
nothing I
says,
could
why
do
don't you
but
send your resume and application
Yeah.
and your file, and you send it.
Well, that's what happened with Mel, when they married Lauren.
That hurts.
Well, imagine, these guys were all around it.
Lauren, now we're going up the side of the other hill. All right, come off of this one. We're down in the holler. We're going up the side of the other one.
If they're gonna
And
need
there
somebody.
comes a beautiful stream of water that I knew was a spring. And I reached down with my hand like this and I smelled it, tasted it. I said, Lord, you see, we hadn't had anything since early morning. I said, Lord,
Well, I know,
this is good
trying
water.
to find the
Get a drink. I don't know when we run across
There's
anymore.
this one
This
guy
is
there.
good.
Oh,
And
girl.
we laid down there, or not laid down, but we got us a drink,
Yeah.
watching it
5
we
years
could,
there at school.
and got up
and
to go
now
on up the
he's
hill there to
competition.
get into the larger timber line,
History.
okay.
larger timber
He
line.
loves history.
And I said, dig in, Lord, dig in. I heard that guy holler behind me. I said, dig in, Lord, dig in. And as I said, dig in, I looked back, and there was this.
One of them.
Oh, he wasn't too big. He was big for his age, or I bet he was a kid. He had that rifle. Yeah, and there was I seen the stars. I said, in other words, there in the camp. I said, Lord, it's part of an hole. And I was still aiming. I think right out under that large timber. If he started shooting, I was still.
You wonder, what's it all worth?
So he was a good horse.
And he was a part of.
Other than that,
Now, he's the little fella that carried us that night.
coaching position.
Or that evening. That evening took us all the way back up into the mountain to this doctor. Up there, Lake. And it was a little village up in the mountains. It was up north and in the mountains. Now where it was, Bruce, I don't know.
Where you gonna try and stay down
All I know
here,
it was
or you gonna-
north.
Not gonna go any
I know
farther.
that we walked, and at one time there was
That's important, because if it
one
was
farmer
more,
came by. One farmer came by with a cart and I believe it was a mule. I'm not sure. I can remember because that's what I broke in on, a mule and a double shovel.
yeah,
And we rode in that cart for a little while, and then he was going around the mountain the other way.
okay.
And this kid took us on that night.
But you know, it's something
That
else.
was in the evening.
Yeah.
That was in the evening. But he kept us covered all the time. In other words, we weren't out in the open. He kept us. In other words, when it got dark, he began to make a beeline. I could tell. I mean, in other words, we were definitely going in a direction, and it was still north.
Well, then that must have
Well,
been,
preschool in
do you
Earlville.
remember at all, now that
What's the starting pay?
we've ascertained
I don't know,
that Dad
it's in the
was
paper that
who
they're
he was,
starting one.
do you remember at all when you might have run into him? Was it during the first part of the journey, the middle
It
of the
was
journey?
in the mid part of the journey, and we got split up.
So
after
they
that.
were probably bringing him in a different way.
We got split up.
Oh, you did?
Well,
Yes, because we had been split up. We had been split up just
I'm not gonna make
about
10.
a week or so before that we came in down there at Petrov, now Petrov. Yeah, about a week or so before. We've been all split up. Now, does any of them remember? You heard me talk about it. It's still in my mind enough. I can draw it.
Yeah, what?
In other words, there is here's a mountain range running here. Here's a mountain range running here, and it comes together here. This is a valley down here. All right, we came over this and that night. There's where I lay by a big root, big oak tree, and this big root. Until early morning, we went down into this little
It
building,
helps a lot.
and we were in a building, partisans and all of we fellas, that we could not sit down. We couldn't sit down together. We couldn't lay down together. We had to stand up.
Because there were so many people,
There
and
were
the
so
room was
many
too
people.
small. Okay,
There were so many people.
okay, okay.
And we knew that, I knew by this, that the Germans evidently were close. Now, I had smelled, as they brought us, after they held us up here.
Yeah.
We got in there relatively early that evening, or that night. It is in the evening hours, dark.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, well, if they're gonna stay, I'm gonna try to get a little rest. And I laid down there, back up to that roof, pulled up cold. And, they got us together, and we went down into the town, and they put us in this building, and as we were going in, I smelled the butchering
Oh, have you?
of hogs.
Yeah.
They were butchering hogs
Yeah.
somewhere.
In the village?
Yes,
Okay.
somewhere.
I don't think so.
Or Well, the next morning then, I just knew we really get, you know, we really get a, that's what I was raised on, sow belly steak.
Sure, sure.
So I just knew we was gonna get a biscuit and gravy and pork.
It's only for a little while.
They sent us out. And back here on this side of it, they sent Nordwell and I. Nordwell was at that time going with us continuing.
No,
Me
the
continuing.
one that got condos.
And there was a solid wall there. It is, I'd say, 2 stories high.
Okay.
Come into this lady's house. She had makeshift coffee, as I remember, our little warm milk. Just a little cup.
Yeah.
There was a bench like this, about like this bench sitting out there on my porch. And I just stretched out on there and unzipped my heavy flying equipment and stretched out on the bench, and I just took my GI shoes and I broke the tongue apart so I could get in them quick.
Yeah.
And when that Malta, that
Did you
kid
see
from
that
Malta
commercial on TV?
was with us. He was in the
Where
bus.
it's Raisin
Malta.
Bran, you know?
He
His
came
little
in
boy,
there.
that's a
I said,
bed.
he come in
They had
yelling,
Raisin
so
Bran
he's excited.
like
I said,
this back
Lord,
in the old
what's he
days.
saying? I said, well, I know what he said. He said behind is coming. Let's go.
Raisin Bran.
I
He
hate
said,
them
I
shoes.
think I like
Let go
total
fly,
Raisin
that
Bran
heavy
better.
flying leather.
Right
Boy,
there.
I said,
right
oh,
there.
because it's got all the
And I hope
vitamins
that lady,
for young people
lady
like
seen
you
it
and old
and took
people
it,
like
did
me.
did something
Yeah,
with
No,
it.
and then the little boy looks up
Yeah.
and
Now,
down, he said,
as we were,
Dad,
Nordwell and I
how did
took
you
out,
become a dad
Nordwell and I
anyway? He
took
said, eat
off.
your Raisin Bran.
I stayed with him. I wouldn't get him. I prodded him because of his arm.
Yeah.
He couldn't run.
Back in the
fast
olden
as I
days,
could
but they never
anyway.
Raisin
But I
Bran.
would prod him. And when we got up there, I'd say we had run a half a mile up to there. I'd turn, sit down and look back. And I said to the fellow, we can't sit down here. I said, they're coming to me. You heard the chickens are squalling. The
Yeah.
pigs
So
are
something was going on. Yeah. Something.
And I told you, I said, I looked back and I seen this man come across, and I knew enough that he was on the wagon with the bed and everything stripped off of it, and
Yeah.
it broke apart, and he was out there on the hounds of that wagon, or on the double trees and the tongue of that wagon with those horses still trying to get to the house. The women were crying, the kids were screaming.
So something hit the
And,
village.
and,
the Germans hit
and
the
the
village.
Germans were coming in and they were shooting.
Yeah, that's mentioned in one of the diaries. I think.
It is in one of the diaries?
Yeah,
I was
because
in that.
because what it said, the sum total of it was they got out of this village just before either the Germans knew that the people were there, they tracked them there, or
I don't know.
whatever.
My
And
mom hadn't said, but
it didn't go into a lot about it,
Braille this morning.
but it was a very close call. Is how it turned out. And they figured that the village was burnt to the ground after that. And the way the Germans burn it is they would, a lot of the buildings were stone walled, but a wood roof. And the foundation was wood below. They would light the fire low and then cave it in so the house couldn't be used again. And they just totaled the whole village. Huh?
They did this on foot?
The
They
Germans?
come in, yeah. Or did they do it with a unit, to coming in, marching in?
I
Or did they do
suppose
with
it took,
incendiaries?
I think it took all 3 of the forms. I think it depends on
I
the
see.
size of the village and whatever, but they did have a, I guess for lack of a better term, a scorched-earth policy. If they found any sympathizers, or if they found,
He said,
or if they found any remnants of airmen, they destroyed the whole
Church here
village.
with Grandma.
And normally
I
they
can't
would,
remember her name.
they wouldn't mess around. They would,
Said she used to work
they
there
were
for
just,
a
they
while.
would
I
just
would
liquidate
wonder if they
everything.
came in as a ground unit, or if they dropped incendiary.
I think it depended on,
And,
well, who knows? I think it depended on the location, and I think it depended on the concentration. I think if it was a larger village, it
Mama
probably
said,
broke
"You
down
go
there.
Yeah.
All the way through some of these diaries, it mentioned that these German, what they call them, something Felsers, no, the observation points, I forget what they call these things. But those guys were working all the time. Those guys were working, I didn't realize that this German book was saying that
It's something.
when they attacked the squadron coming in, the fighter pilots would radio down to the observation planes that they had hit a bomb. And the observation planes would be looking and they would track this thing immediately. So they had quite a system, is what they had. And then the observation plane would radio into ground
Now,
units.
in this piece of down this smith,
Yeah.
they dropped incendiary.
Yeah, okay.
In other words, one little girl, she was, 2 or 3 years old.
Got burned.
I talked with her grandfather,
Yeah.
and we were up in the attic of it. He kept us there in the beach.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah?
when this was over, I didn't know it at the time because out on the street there, the teen kids started. Yeah, I ran horses, drove and driven the horse. And I seen, I started to take it. I can't keep that.
Hey, honey.
I went back and I went into this little shack.
Yeah.
And there was those 2 kids. Once, that's what I remember.
Yeah, now how did, when did Munson fit into this thing? Did he fit in at that time then?
That's the he was with us.
At that
That's-
point, but not further north, not with Lowell.
No.
Okay,
No,
okay, that
no,
figures,
no,
okay, okay.
no. Because, now, they see, this, Delnice was,
I saw one I like too there. Log cabin sitting up in the trees.
Yes, further south.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
Just before
now it
you
all
get to-
figures, okay.
No,
Because Munson, we'll have to check the record. I'm not sure. I know Munson wasn't in the 429, I don't believe, but he could have been in the 96.
Just outside of Miami before you get to.
I usually remember that.
In Southside.
Usually remember that.
It's
They
back
came
on
in after
lane.
that, they dropped those
Back
machines.
lane sitting in the
That's
trees.
Cause it
Got
They
little
came in
ties
straight.
in
But
front of it.
right
Yeah,
over
It's a
the
whole
top.
lot's a big job. I really don't know what it is.
It's really pretty, but it's not for sale. But it's pretty
They done,
good.
but I'll tell you one thing, if I'd had my old excavator, my shotgun,
Yeah.
he would've went by the second time and ran it like he did.
Yeah, I hear you. So they're
And,
real low.
the snow was on, and there was a clothesline between us, and this shack, and the log barn here.
Yeah.
Clothesline here. And he was coming down, and the town was on this range. In other words, it's like you stick it out there for a mile.
Yeah.
I said, I said, we've got to do something with these children. I said, they're just absolutely gonna go hysterical with that.
Yeah.
You'll never get them back to anything normal.
Yeah.
I said, tell you what, I said, when he makes it, whenever I see that last snow fly, I'll try to make it to the low barn, and then I'll get back. If I can, I said, then we try to take these kids to the low barn, because I said, I'll leave these people there. That's exactly what I did. I went to the low barn,
Ain't much
just
time
thinking,
on there.
over the next one, of course, they were
She
cold.
already told me, but
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
We didn't
made her
we were
back,
sitting in there in the living
and
room
it was
because
a
there
girl
was
and
enough
boy.
around the table.
the boy
So they were
was
passed
smaller,
around and
the
stuff,
girl was
you know,
heavier.
for the bar plate.
And I figured out,
And I had
that
already
bunch,
got
I was
my
fast as I could outrun a hole in my
beans.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, I
He
didn't
had
go
the
to the
mashed
crack.
potatoes and was
Yeah.
cooking.
And,
And so I held my plate
I
over
said,
him
no,
and did
I'm
And
gonna
he
walk.
put them right in the mayo,
I
and
said,
little
go.
baked beans.
You got it.
Yeah, that's him.
What happened? And I seen, well, he made it. Well, then it turned my turn. After the next went by, the last one, and I said,
watch his shoulder.
all right, we got there.
His
And
shoulder?
children, sure enough, some of the folks is there, that,
He
well,
almost
that
got
that
it.
street
Yeah.
kids out.
Yeah.
It flies out of place.
And that man,
Oh,
in,
bite.
I'd say,
swear he got
man,
shot when he was a dog.
When he was a dog.
he took the worst, hardest bullfinger shake that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
His teeth rattled, you could hear it roll.
Yeah.
And I just took my foot,
No.
came and grabbed his shoulder, and you can,
No, then you go, no, I
come on, snap out of here, fella. You can't let this happen.
You know him, don't you? Him and Dean.
No, mine is
Until the same thing happened to me. Now, you remember that.
Yeah, okay.
And it was a thing in the world I can't explain.
Yeah.
I don't know. But,
Your mother
Oh,
knew
did
it.
she took him? Okay, no, darling.
if he's that man,
Yeah.
if he's that
Yeah,
buddy, that
yeah,
comrade,
yeah.
if he's that comrade
Yeah.
that did that, he'll know.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
There's that log barn, I seen the van come out of the manure pile, scraping all the waste off of it.
Yeah.
That he hadn't made it around to get into the log barn,
Not
he had thrown
fine
into
if
that
they were.
manure pile. You know how you should throw, throw
Mom's- mom and
your
dad.
waste.
Yeah, sure,
Down
sure,
there.
yeah.
Not the- yes.
told you he's gonna listen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that was a Dillness.
Mount
Okay.
Zion.
That's
up there
gotta
where
be
Mom-
mentioned.
Mom and
in
Dad's
the thing
buried.
here. We'll have to pull it out.
Just having their homecoming today. Mom said,
I
well, I
navigated
don't know how they're gonna have
back to that.
Yeah.
dinner outside.
First
Said it's
encounter.
raining. Dad said, they won't. They'll have it in the house.
Exactly what
Mom said, well, that's
happened.
gonna be
I just
cute.
don't know.
You two
'Cause
were
they
the
don't have a
only
basement
ones
under there.
though that made it out in
Yes.
this
I said,
room.
they'll line your house, Mom.
Yes, Nordwell, Ernie E. Nordwell and myself.
Okay. So the log is right. The partisan
Yes.
log is right here.
The partisan
See,
log
the,
is
the
right.
partisan log is wrong a few pages
Yes,
later
no, this
because
is
it
correct.
shows some other crews
And
that
it
were
was March
mismatched.
19th.
Okay, okay.
And it was
So that's the day after
approximately,
day.
it was noon, approximately 12 o'clock.
You guys had to have come down. You guys had to have come down the same area that Dad had come down the day before. But see, Dad was captured that
Yeah,
first day.
that's
He and
what
Lauterbach were
right.
captured because the
I can't,
the tail gunner, and I can't see. There's a missing piece because Lauterbach is gone now. Dad, I remember as a kid, I said, "Were you ever
Lauterbach, the
captured?"
deceased,
Huh?
he did.
Yeah, Lauterbach passed away, but this is according to the VA. So far, the VA's made two mistakes. They have been just a bunch of jerks. They have not, they
Tell
did
me
not have
why
any
they
record
can't
of
get that-
veracity.
Why that they can't get that
Oh, this
straight.
freedom of information.
I was so aggravated
It's just-
whenever I
it's just
called my
ridiculous.
wife that night.
Yeah,
And this had been, look, of course, I'd thumbed across, and I'd gone back to the outfit.
yeah,
I'd gone back to the outfit, talked to the boys, talked to the squadron, talked to the crew.
yeah.
See, they advised us not to carry our 45s and all that. And I told the fellas there, I said, it may be ordered, I said, I won't fly another mission unless I'll take mine.
Well, see, what was ironic in the case on Dad's plane with Leo Rossi is, and this is how I knew that this other guy was on the crew that day.
Yeah, it's terrible.
He said-
You can't get a tan in it.
Leo always carried his 45. Now, he had more missions than even Dad. And so he was, a lot of these guys would jump onto the planes to try and get their 50 out. And the day he got on Dad's plane, for some reason, he didn't have his 45. And when they were taxiing,
He's
out
dark and I'm so white.
field,
They call me
he was
Casper.
making a big stink in the back of the plane saying, "Where's my 45?" checking every plane.
This is
Well, it
Spanish
worked out a
people.
few hours later.
She come over
The
to give me
plane
some
went down and
parts.
he lost his arm.
She set him down in front of me.
If he
She
would have
put
had
her
that
arm next to
45
mine.
on the ground, he would have shot himself in the
Okay, let me
head.
check
He doesn't know to
Casper.
this day whether he would have had enough guts
I'm
to
not
do it. He
friendly,
was in so
ghost.
much pain. He probably would have. And he said the
I said,
fact
"You ought
that
to see
that
my husband." I
45
said,
was
"He
not
put
with
you to
him
shame."
probably is why he did it.
That's what I told her. I said,
Which is
he is so
amazing.
tan. I
But
said,
this
"You-"
one guy on the
She said,
plane
"Well,
says, I
I'm
remember this guy.
trying."
He was
She
the
said,
one.
"I go to
He says, I don't remember that
tanning
guy's
salon
name. There's a
every
guy
night."
going,
I said, "Well, I'm
soup
not paying
to
to
nuts
get
up
it
for his
when I was
45. I
son's
said, that was
free."
Leo Rossi. And it was just amazing. It was just amazing because all of these guys, see, I'm still searching for two more of the guys, and they're very critical
I
guys.
got a good start.
One is the upper turret gun.
Star.
He is the only surviving Silver Star recipient on that plane. And as far as the government's concerned, without him, we have no case. Even though I've got the mission reports and everything, which is just ridiculous. We can't find him. His name is Albert Smith. He had to have made the whole journey out. The other one is the radio gunner, Vernon Jensen. He was with the 775th.
I mean,
He was not decorated because all of the guys on Dad's plane, the 4 guys from the 775th, their records hadn't caught up with
so
them.
what if I eat
When
one?
they got back to Barry, they were trying to figure out what plane they were
What
on.
was Jensen?
He was a radio gunner. RO, radio gunner. Vernon A. Jensen was from Muskegon,
You
Michigan.
see, these names,
Sound familiar?
all right. You see, look, there's a lot of names will sound familiar because I was down at Eisenhower Central Trade in A&M before I got into cadets. See, I was enlisted, man. I have 2 serial numbers.
Okay.
And when you come in, now Ted Lauterbach,
Yeah,
Ted
yeah,
Lauterbach.
yeah.
Now,
That son's
He was
good.
Dad's co-pilot.
okay, now, was he, you don't have any idea as, because that name, you see, when you know, if
He
you
was
remember on
from,
the
he was
phone
from
when you
Sac
called.
City, Iowa.
Okay, we had a lot of ones, they were home, he was from up in that area. They came through, Isaac Dale got us some place down in New Orleans.
Okay.
And I was acting first sergeant, worked in the, as a clerk there, clerical, and acting first sergeant, and then I went through A&M school with him. And these names, some of those names that you
So
know,
Lauterbach sounds familiar.
I know that I have had contact
Oh,
with.
yeah,
But he
yeah, I
had
know,
fun.
I know.
And that's the reason why, now, all right, now your dad was in Poggi.
Yeah.
You could tell that.
Poggi Air Base.
Actually,
And he was
the
with what,
section of the section of
again,
the air
I
base was Amador. Let me pull it out. Let me pull it out because
Oh,
we've
okay,
got it
that's why
all.
that's on the table
Do you
off.
want some strawberry shortcake
Oh, yeah,
before
gotta
I
have-
clear the table?
Gotta have strawberry shortcake on this.
All right, just
Yeah.
a short.
Yeah,
Now,
I'll mop
Okay.
up the water here.
I have a friend, or I have a buddy. Well, he's Ted resigned
Yeah,
down near Karnak.
yeah.
Was at Poggi. All right, my high school classmate was in my group,
Yeah.
and he came down. He was a brother-in-law to Charlie. In other words, Ted and Charlie Henry.
Yeah.
Ted Gazai.
Thank you.
Okay, the day that I was shot down, Ted came down from Poggi
Yeah.
down to see me and Charlie.
Oh, you're kidding.
And
You said
when he got there,
goodbye,
then I
he
didn't
said
see.
Yeah.
I was down.
Yes, yes.
And Ted
So it must have been a
was,
little of both.
he was in.
She didn't listen mainly though.
You mean you're not gonna eat these after you pick them up?
Nevertheless, he was in the administration. I figured he didn't fly.
Okay.
He didn't fly, he was in administration.
I didn't
Okay.
know that, you know, Mom.
And I'll check with Ted to see if he remembers your dad
Okay.
and some of those names. I'll work it out.
a lot of them right now.
When I get their names and all are in this
All that West
300.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what is really,
You have ice cream with her, or did you?
Yeah.
You want some ice cream?
oh,
on top of
no,
that?
no, this is fine, this is fine.
I don't either, Mom.
What is really a big deal on this thing now is, and it kind of jumps around because this thing is really big. Hillary King was the communications expert, or the radio expert, if you will, at Tito's headquarters on behalf of the British. And they called their group, they were called the OSE, equivalent of our OSS, or National Security Agency, whatever you want to call it, present day. They were sent specifically to Tito's headquarters with Randolph Churchill, Winston's nephew, and Winston's son, I guess Winston's son, to ascertain the strength
She didn't like the towel.
and the credibility of Tito versus McAllister.
You see where it was?
And when he was there
Did you have it all spread on them?
doing his duties, he had a lot of contacts with the Army Air Corps at Barry, because that's where he got a lot of his radio equipment. His job was to set up transmitters. His job was to work with not only the partisans, but also with the logistics guys, the meteorologists, everything to get, So, what has become apparent here is,
He showed me the cat first.
and why
That's
the
the one
people
I
in
was told,
Yugoslavia
but
are
then
very
he
interested
chose
in
the
this,
And then
this
asked me to
piece
pick.
of history that occurred between the time you were shot down and the
So
time you
since I
guys
was already
left
holding that one, I just took the
was
cat.
I'd have had
almost
probably
the baseline
shut my eyes, hold
of
them
Tito's
open, whatever,
credibility.
move around, whatever I grab.
When Hillary got back after the war, he finished his studies in Cambridge, came back to Yugoslavia, working in the British Embassy on the top secret side, and continued to work on the secret side until he retired from the British Foreign Service in sometime in the 70s. Now he's been in the process the last 5 years of writing memoirs about his experiences during this period of time. And what has become very critical is now all these records in Germany, in Yugoslavia, in the United States have been
Mom went to the
declassified.
kitchen last night, she was, I
So
think
he
she
has
was gonna get Dad
access
some,
to not only
strawberries and ice
American
cream or
records of what was going
she
on,
came back and Gary was
i.e.
sitting
your
on my lap,
mission
I was
to
sitting in
stretch
the
out the
chair and
whole
he
bit.
came, sat on
but
my lap.
also the
He
German
says,
records and the
"But
Yugoslavian records,
Mommy,"
and he's
and
now
Mom came in
cross-referencing
and she
to get
says,
the whole
well, look,
story.
that ain't a lap full.
And there was a big
She said,
historical debate
"She's
going
my
on.
mommy."
It has gone
I said,
on since the
"Yeah,"
day
and
you
she's
guys
like,
left.
"You're breaking your mommy's
And Tito's
legs."
headquarters were built, and right now, 1991, on, and it's a very big thing. Did the Allies know the upcoming attack on Tito's headquarters?
I read you loud and
And the
clear.
three scenarios are, the Russians planted this rumor clear back in April of 1944, that the Allies knew and they wanted Tito killed. Well, if they knew they had 80 airmen there that were getting rescued at this time, would they have sacrificed the 80 airmen for this fact that the German top secret code had been cracked? The German top secret code was cracked March 15th, a few days before you guys went down. The Germans were smart. They had spies every place, including back here in the United States.
Yeah, right.
They knew somehow that the British had cracked the code, but did the Allies know what was going on and then passed it through anyway to prolong the fact that the Germans knew that the Allies broke the code? In other words, at the time you guys came out, the Germans had an inkling that the code was broken. The proof would have been if they had said a correspondence that they were attacking Tito's headquarters, and Tito would have been warned. Tito was never warned. Why was Colonel Niebelov, a high-ranking colonel that, according to Hillary, was one of only 2 individuals in Barry that had what I term now in the computer industry Q clearance to know that the code was broken? Why was a guy of that stature parachuted in to pay off the partisans for 80 airmen? Doesn't make sense. Why then did he not, if he had access to the code, did not warn at least the British there that 2 days later? See, Hillary went back with you guys. Niebelov went back with you guys to Barry. Hillary came back to Drvar with radio gear. Niebelov came back to Drvar and then disappeared in the countryside. A day after that, Tito's headquarters was obliterated. Parachute attack. I mean, the Germans hit it with, this was not just a few little parts. They hit
So
it
that
with
wasn't just a coincidence.
No, it wasn't a coincidence. So here's Hillary debating with all these war historians from Germany and all this stuff, saying, okay, the Allies did not know about the upcoming attack, but all the evidence points to the fact that they did know about the upcoming attack. Were the airmen used as a pawn, a decoy? Did Nibeloff know and maybe told Tito, but maybe it was worked out that his headquarters was going to be hit?
Now, right here, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
It came across my mind.
Yeah.
Did your dad, in any way, anything, he's the man that I'm thinking that he is, and I believe I got it paid.
Yeah.
He thought, he was very observing about what you're talking about right here.
Yeah.
So was I, out of closed
Yeah.
mouth.
Yeah.
At one time, thinking that the partisans were using us.
Sure. Sure. Because there's a
No,
couple
wait,
of
I
reasons.
mean using us in a little bit different sense than what you're thinking of there. In other words, they weren't doing for us what they really could do.
Yeah, that was obvious. That was obvious clear back to when you guys were first shot down. Somewhere in your journey, were you guys supposed to meet a submarine or a ship or something that was supposed to get you out of the coast?
There was rumors. There was rumors that because we were almost to split.
Yes, it was a submarine that was supposed to show up and
We
never
were
showed
almost
up.
to split, and they came back, and the let's see, the information came back. We couldn't get out of split, and that we had to retrace, retrack, and
You had to
we really
backtrack.
did backtrack, identical backtrack.
Well, you tell me. I talked to 3 guys that made it out after being shot down within 3 days or 7 days. In fact, this one guy kept on confusing my dad with one of those guys. He said, oh, your dad, he got back in 3 days. He said he was flying again in 3 days. I said, no, Dad took Dad 46 days to get out, plus or minus. And he said, well, some of these guys got out right away. Well, that answers your question.
That's right. Well, now, there's something else that answers your question now. At that time, at that point in time,
Yeah.
they were pushing the Germans. They were pushing the Germans back up the boot. You see.
Correct.
Okay. Now, they could possibly land there, the Adriatic, or even on the Italian side there,
Sure.
the Adriatic,
Sure.
and they could possibly work their way back through within a few days or a week.
Sure. Well, the British
But now
had...
we weren't in that category.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
See, that was my thought whenever the first.
You guys were the largest group of Allied airmen ever returned in mass
Right.
in that whole theater
Yes.
during the Second World War.
Yes.
Now, there was a reason for that. There was a significant reason for that. And it wasn't just the partisans getting paid $800 American for each airman returned. That wasn't it. There was something more significant.
And they're
because
still
they could
trying
have
to get
gotten-
to really. They're still trying to really work out the truth, the real.
Oh yeah, the
real
German
truth
scholars.
of
The
this.
German scholars are saying, from their point of view and their records, the code was called Ultra. They said, okay, you guys cracked Ultra. You guys, meaning the British, cracked Ultra on March 15th of 1944. There were 2 individuals in Berry, a Colonel Allen and a Colonel Nibeloff, that had access to the cracked code. Colonel Nibeloff was parachuted in when you guys came in.
Okay.
Why in the heck would you parachute in? The only guy, one of 2 individuals in Berry that had access to the just being cracked U.S. code. Now, one of the guys, 2 of the guys in your group that came out, this group of 8, I don't know which plane they were on, I have no idea.
Yeah.
When you guys got back to your bases, and then they debriefed, and then boom, you guys were any way you can get home, right? Quickly as you can.
We
What was the
landed in Berry.
Yeah.
They took us into the hospital area.
Right.
Okay.
Did you have a
then
debriefing
we,
at some point?
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
And then we were debriefed. Then after debriefing, we were permitted to go back to our outfits. I went
Right.
back 454th
Okay.
Squadron, and then we came back to Berry,
Right.
and we were to leave more or less. We got our orders,
Right.
but we had permission. We had the right
Right.
to thumb.
Yes, okay. One of the guys mentioned that. Now, one of these guys in this group that had the permission to thumb, there were 2 of them, somehow found their way back to North Africa.
Now, I'll come through North
Okay.
Africa.
Well, 2 guys from the German Gestapo tried to Shanghai them at either Tunis or Casablanca. once they found out, I don't know how they found out that these guys were a part of this group that had come out. And what they intended to do, if they would have caught them, is take them back, torture them to figure out who the partisan contacts were, and if they were in this group. And if they were in this group, they would have continued to torture them, much like they did Raymond McKee, to find out if they had knowledge of the German code and the German movement. Right? Now that also may play a small part in why the Yellow Noses were active that day. Because the Germans were so, I'll show you one of the prison IDs on Raymond Horn, and you won't believe it. They knew his neighbors. Before he got to Stalag Street, they knew his neighbors on each side of his street in his hometown.
Okay. That was Horn in this group?
No, Horn was captured the same day they hit the ground. Horn and McKee were captured either on March 18th or March 19th. Dad was captured on March 18th. He and Lauterbach. And Ira Parker had been found by the partisans as soon as he hit the ground. In fact, he was drifting down. He saw the plane over here. He saw these guys in green coming out this way, and he's still coming down, watching this whole thing. And it wasn't until 3 days later when he got in contact with another guy that they put together they were on the same plane. That's how much these guys didn't know each other, how quickly they were thrown
It could
together.
happen. But you see, now mine was right the opposite. Mine was out, open, bang, that's it.
Well, what happened
It was just it and that's it.
is there was this mountain in this valley.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
back to this valley.
Right.
Dad and Lauterbach
Yeah.
and probably McKee
Come out in this
Horn
valley.
came down on the other side.
Right.
These other guys came down on this side.
Okay.
Leo was up in the middle, the guy
Okay.
without the arm.
Okay.
Okay, when the partisans came to Earl, they immediately got him out of there.
Yeah.
And at that point on the way out, he saw either the body or whatever of Lawrence Metal, and they said, keep going, I'll take care of it. And it was that they found out the next day on Sunday that he was buried in Catholic Church, and they couldn't, none of the crew could come. The partisans wouldn't allow it because of the chance of being discovered. Well, as he's motoring out this way, they went around this hill again, or this mountain.
Uh-huh.
And they're up on top of this thing, and Dad mentioned as a kid, I said, were you ever captured? He said, yeah. And I said, well, were you a prisoner of war? And he says, no, we escaped. And I said, well, how'd you escape? And he said, well, you know, typical Dad. He says, well, we rolled out of the back of a truck. Well, he was with the partisans. Earl Parker was with the partisans coming around this hill, and as they looked down, they saw this little road, probably no bigger than the one out here.
Uh-huh. Right.
And they saw these two guys booking, running down this road.
Yeah.
And they ran right smack dab into a German patrol. And they were interrogating them, and meanwhile Earl's saying, do something. And they're going, back down. And they loaded him into the back of the truck. And the next thing he saw is the truck went around a bend, and these two guys came peeling out of the back of the truck. They weren't very well guarded, and the dad got somehow either winged or something in the heel. He got wounded in the heel somehow. And they ran for it, and that's when they got then separated, and then finally Dad didn't eat for a couple of days and scouted out this farmhouse, and finally he was so hungry he went to the door, and sure enough they were partisans, and that's what the whole thing happened. But here's Earl sitting on this hill watching this whole thing. And I'm just going, I don't believe this, because that had to have been Dad and Lauterbach, the way Dad described. He didn't know that I knew that the only thing I knew about Dad is he'd rolled out of the back of the truck. That had to have been.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? And all this is happening, and Earl's memory is just crystal clear. He says, you know, he says, I remember that, and he said, it looked like they hit some guy and went out. And I said, yeah. I said, Dad had mentioned they hit some guy with a corner of a stool, and then they ran away. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it wasn't like you escaped from Stalag 17 or whatever, but that had to have been, and here he is on this hillside watching this whole thing. Now, at that same time, McKee and Horn were not so fortunate, because they had been immediately captured and turned over in either case. So out of the crew, Lawrence Meidel was dead, buried the next day. The plane was intact. Earl Parker then lined up with Albert Smith 3 days later. And Smith was the one, the upper turret gunner, that told them about all what went on up in the cockpit, what was going on. They got hit by 88s, they had fires going on. He said when he bailed out, he was still beating the flames out of his pants on the way down. Now, McKee had an incredible story, because he was a bombardier that was then captured. He said that his chute had been hit in the plane. He and Dad had gone back through the plane, he described that. And that verifies that they got either Metal out and Rossi, or Rossi out, because that's when Dad got Rossi out. And it was McKee and Dad that went back through the plane. And then when they went back forward again, McKee went to get his chute. He said, "Oh,
Pardon me.
God," he says, his chute was hit by something and opened up. And they're sitting there debating, the three of them, or four of them, Dad, Lauterbach, Horn, and McKee, or Dad, McKee, and Horn, to take each other's chute. And he gathered it up and he said, "See," and took off. Well, he bailed out of the plane with the chute gathered up like this. Somehow, I don't know how he had it on, but the chute had opened up in the plane. McKee's chute had opened up inside his plane. And he made it, of all the crazy things. And then only to get captured, the next day, after all that. So, it's just totally amazing.
Well, I took the ripcord immediately as I went out.
Were you guys told at Barry to just never speak of this incident again?
Yes, we were not to speak of it. We were not to talk about it. In other words, they'd ask you questions when we got back. Because I think what you're telling me now is the very reason for it. But I already knew this. And you see, now the one thing, I never drank at all. I didn't drink the GI issue that they brought to us.
No.
And while I was up there, a cigarette and a snowball will quench your hunger. And I got bit with a cigarette. And I still haven't gotten completely rid of it.
Same with that. Same with him.
And
I didn't realize he was a heavy cigarette smoker until many years
I'll tell you,
later.
I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I was just one of them things. I was a country boy out here, and I love track, I love basketball, I love football.
That's what
I love the whole bit.
basketball. Yeah.
And that would take your lungs, your air. And I got bit there with that little old 4 in the pack there, what is it, in the carton, 4 or 5, something like that.
They gave him out free, right?
Oh, they come in that they dropped in. GI issue.
Yeah, but I mean at the basics, didn't they give him out?
No,
Right,
because
right.
I'm leaving nickel a pack, and the guys that come to me that smoked heavy, some in my crew, some others, and they say, "Hey, Wes, would you go ahead and get your quota?" I said, "Yeah." I'd buy the quota.
Yeah.
I'd pitch them over there. I'd make me a little table over there, makeshift table on the in the tent. I'd pitch them on the table, and it's just 5 cents a pack, practically nothing. And I'd buy different kinds for her. And there they was. They'd come by and pick them up, take them. Sometimes they left.
Did you ever
for
hear
one
the
night
story at your base? Did they ever, when they got beer at the bases, and I don't know if you heard about this, but they did this in North Africa and then Sicily and Italy, or I guess Foggia. They had P-38s that they would fly back to, maybe this was in North Africa, one of the places, they would fly and get this beer someplace, and they would load it in the fuel tanks of P-38s, take it up to altitude, bring it back down to the base, and they said it tasted kind of like gasoline, and it was cold beer.
Yeah, it sounds.
Yeah, they fill up the tanks of these P-38s.
And I do know because we made a mail run. In other words, our crew, while we were in Tunis, we made a mail run up there to get the mail for the guys. To get the mail and bring it back to Africa because we weren't going up. See.
Yeah.
So that sounds feasible.
Yeah. Well, one of these P-38 pilots, evidently there was a 17 out of Dad's group that had gone out one day. This was in December, I guess, of '44, and they had been, well, it was Sweet Pea. They had been shot in 2. That was that photo I showed you in there, and they got back to the base, and they were lagging way behind their squadron, and this P-38 guy came up, and he came up real close to them. This must have been north of Barry or north of Foggia, wherever the first fighters were based on. And he came really close, and this guy could remember him shaking his head, seeing this plane in 2 pieces, and then land again. Well, it wasn't, but 3 weeks later, this guy was on another plane, and they got shot up, and they came in and they had to crash land on this fighter base. And evidently, all the hydraulics, something was really desperately wrong. When they came into the base, they ended up severing one of the fuel lines to get, aircraft fuel in. And of course, they had this fire going on. Well, they invited these guys into the fighter base HQ there, and or where they have their drinks and stuff. And here it was another 17, and they're all talking about this whole experience. And this fighter pilot comes up and he says, "You bomber guys are nuts." He said, he said you come swinging in here like this with nothing. He says, a few weeks back, he says, I came up and I saw a plane that was cut in 2, and this guy says, I was on that one too. He says, you better get home. He says, you're a jinx. So the same pilot saw these 2 things.
They sure called it jinx, in other words, something like that.
He says, you're a jinx, get out of here. He says, yeah, this guy was on that plane too.
Yeah.
But this P-38 and this beer
I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's get this. Are you? Anything else?
No, this was wonderful.
While they're cleaning that up, I've got to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
And
I'll pull this stuff out.
I'll be back and we'll get,
What you guys are interested in, see some of this stuff.
I tell you, I never figured I'd sit down and talk about it like that.
Some idea of size here. Their bases were, Dad's base was about here, covered up by the key. There's Berry headquarters. Your father's base was right down here, in this area. And their mission that day took them up, well, the mission Dad's day, and Lowell, I think, was heading on a different target, but the same area. Their mission was to fly over the Adriatic. This was Vis. This island became a very strategic rescue point. The British held it, and when he mentioned Split and the submarine would take the guys to Vis, and then from Vis they'd fly them to Berry. But where they were all shot down was clear up here, near Klagenfurt in Austria, which was as German could get. Now this may ring a bell with you. Well, this is an overview map of Yugo, and then we'll go to the smaller ones. I was showing them, here's Berry, where headquarters was of the 15th. Dad was located about over here. There's another one where Forgy was, and you were located down in here someplace, right? Or were you located kind of, it's kind of hard to see because this covers it up, but we'll see it on another map. You were located.
Yes, I remember. It's
Right about here. Yeah, Forgy was there. Okay, now the day of the mission, from what I've been able to find, this is where Melzer's plane went down on the 22nd, right there. That's where, and that's 66 miles east of Ancona. That's where Dad lost all his rhythms. The day that they were shot down, they were coming up, I assume, this way, and the target was on another map that I'll show you. It was over here by Udine. Udine is approximately there. Yeah, Udine Valley. They were hit by heavy flak over Trieste, and that's where some of the first planes were knocked out. Now they ended up somewhere around this area because this one town here of Cernica shows up in some of the diaries, okay? Another town that shows up is Novo Mesto and some other things. But at any rate, Sofia Loka, I don't know if that rings a bell at all. Well, some of the crews ended up there.
Ljubljana, is that the...
Oh yeah, Ljubljana, yeah,
Okay, I
Ljubljana.
was in Ljubljana.
Okay. Now, where Dad came down, there's Jesnes.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if that rings a bell at all.
Yeah, we're up in that,
Okay.
we're up in that area.
Okay, well, his plane went down. Zervanka on the bigger map is right there.
Okay.
St. Peter's right there. There's Klagenfurt. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Tito's headquarters is all the way down here in Drvar.
Right.
And then Petrovac, where those pictures are, you flew out, is due north right here.
I knew they had to be south because, you see, now I was a short time here.
Yeah, Petrovac, on the way down and then on the way back.
A short time.
Yeah.
No, I was there once.
Okay,
I was there once.
okay.
And that was in other words, is there, we got in that night, the next day, and that evening we went out, and the sick and wounded got out on the plane.
Right.
We come back in, and we had been bombed, and that's whenever we went in the foxhole. I went in the foxhole on top of that colonel.
Okay.
And the next night then, after they had gotten out, the sick and the wounded, and the colonel,
Right.
the next night went out, and I informed them. I says, I won't be coming back here,
Yes.
I won't be coming back. There was just a few buildings there. There weren't too many buildings there.
Okay.
I said, I won't be coming back. I said, I'll be out there in the mountains somewhere.
Right, hiding. Yeah.
Yeah, but I said, I won't be coming back here. And as I understood later on, they dropped German paratroopers in there.
Correct, correct. See, that's why everybody was knowing what was going on. As this group of airmen was somehow working their way south, the Germans were tracking it, piecing it together.
Where is Cooper River?
Cooper River? Well, we can find it on a bigger map. This is an overview map here. There's Bihak. Does Bihak ring a bell at all?
I just spelled.
B-I-H-A-C. That's Yugo. This is Yugoslavia map, so.
That's you.
Yeah.
I can't say it does.
Well, they're split.
Oh, yeah.
And somewhere
Okay.
around either here or up in here is where a submarine was supposed to come.
I see.
Either here or here.
It
And
was
there's
split.
V's.
Now, it
There's
was
V's.
split where it was to come in
Okay.
and pick us up.
Okay. So did you guys then end up this far south?
We were almost there. I was
Holy
trying
mackerel.
okay. We were almost, that's what, and wasn't your dad in that group?
Yeah. Yeah, he remembers
Okay,
talking about a
yes.
submarine that
He
never
was
showed.
he was very disheartened. He was very disheartened then on having the firm run on us like this. We all were. We were disheartened.
Okay.
Now, it was in this, if I could run across the town, it was in this. Now, some of those Yugoslavs, they didn't cotton much to the English, some of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I was hungry.
Yeah.
And I said I'd never beg. I
Yeah.
never really begged.
Yeah.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
And as we were coming back, we come into a place and I knew, and I went up the side stairs on the outside, the dwelling up there. Okay, I went up there. I thought it was by myself. Nord wasn't with me at this time. I thought it was by myself. And the lady come to the door. Well, I had learned enough. I asked her, Missa, Kru, Kuhati, Yachi, and food, that's eggs, meat, or
Right.
any food, see, bread, crude, bread. And I noticed she had a pleasant expression on her face at first and then it changed. And I thought, what in the world's wrong here? And I turned to go and there was an Englishman standing behind me.
Oh.
Okay, I turned around and I said, well, she don't have anything. And we went back down there and there's a street there and he went on up this way and I just knew this. Now wait a minute, this from and I walked back and I looked up and there she was.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I came back and she gave me 3 or 4 potatoes,
Okay.
3 or 4 eggs, and a piece of bacon about that. It was about that big a square and about that long. Okay, I was the type. I divided. In other words, and the English colonel. It was the English colonel that
Was
we
it
came
Colonel
across.
Parker? Is that name?
I'm not sure.
Because see, the English,
well,
I found out, were trying to coordinate. All the Americans had dollars.
And I was good at blocking out names.
Yeah,
Well,
okay,
I was good
okay.
at blocking out
It's
names.
probably Colonel Parker.
And but it was near. All right, could we find the Cooper River there?
Cooper
Somewhere.
River. There's Yunda, Cooper River. Would have been down south. There's
Oh,
Lincoln
horse split.
River.
Horse split.
Splits down here.
Okay.
Okay, so
Cooper River. Is this it right here?
might be.
Is this it right here?
Might be. Let's see if we
Or
can find
this.
a name on it. This is Verba, but see, this is in Yugoslavia,
I know.
so this could be.
KUPA.
Let's see here. Here's what's this all in
Not
here?
too far from it. Wouldn't be. Couldn't be.
Here's a Cerna. Cerna.
Cerna.
C-E-T.
I had a map back yonder that I found that on way back yonder,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Well, we'll check another map because this is an overview map. It may not be as detailed.
There's where, right there along that Cooper River is where
Yeah.
I divided that meat with an English colonel and a few that was gathered around there, and we'd slice that.
Yeah.
Now we sliced that just as thin as we could slice it, and took a
Yeah, to
stick.
divide it up.
I tell you, I took a stick, and listen, we just waved that over the fire.
Yeah.
In other words, we didn't want to lose any of it.
Gotcha. So Dad was with you then at that
That's
point?
what I'm asking. You see,
Must have been.
now we were a ragged group then because we had been.
Oh yeah. It's mentioned in the diaries.
We had been
Well, anyway, that's the
harassed.
overview.
We had been harassed.
We'll
And,
get to the bigger
but
map.
now,
So-
while you got the bigger map there, let me
Yeah,
show you.
okay.
'Cause I remember.
Okay.
Now, we
The
took
southern
off.
part?
We took off.
Let me get this one in the middle.
And
This
we
will
took
show.
pretty well. Now you see, you remember that morning it was sort of a jumbled up get together with the group. But nevertheless, we got there and we got in position. And we were flying pretty well north.
Yeah.
That morning, in the briefing,
Yeah.
they had the entire map you see on the wall. I never shall forget it.
How about this one?
And they had that. Okay. All right.
There's
Now,
Mogia.
okay. Now, where's
Where was your base? Down south?
right here?
Okay.
Wait a minute. Whoa. No, that's not it.
Can go. There's Manfredonia. Does that name ring a bell?
No, Chernobyl. C-H-E-R-L-G-N-O-L-A.
I know I've seen it.
Where Barry is.
Barry's here.
Oh,
Let's do that. Okay, let's go lower.
There's some or no.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Is it this one? Chernobyl? It's just spelled without the CH. Chernobyl. That's got to be it.
Must be.
Yeah, that's it. Because this is Italian map now. Everything's in the
Oh,
languages over
okay.
there.
Yeah, and Fuji, see, it's
Yeah,
north.
yeah,
in other words,
yeah.
But I was wrong. In other words, I was east
Yeah,
instead
okay.
of west of Fuji.
Okay.
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
All right, now Barry is
Right here.
right back up here.
Okay.
All right. Somehow.
And then there's the Isle of Capri, where a lot of guys
Oh,
went
yeah,
for
right,
R&R.
right.
Yeah.
I draw the line at high school.
Now here's Udine, here's where the target was that day, and the actual Villarabla landing grounds, which was their target, was right
The
here.
map, the sheet covered a portion of Germany.
Okay,
It covered a portion of Germany, all of Austria, and
okay,
this. And I know me and a buddy of mine, Washer, was named, called him Wash, co-pilot, another co-pilot. We were,
Yeah.
in other words, we were co-pilots. But the simple reason is they'd taken us out after we had graduated. We got no leave. They signed us as co-pilots. We got assigned. My pilot was a B-26 pilot, and a small fella, and he was assigned in his first pilot to 24, and they put groups together in close New Mexico
right,
right immediately after graduation from Pampa.
okay,
In other words, I had flying in that 18-9, and that 18-9 was designed something on the order of B-24. It fell like a rock. It
Right,
had no
right.
aerodynamics floating to mount anything at all. It fell like a rock. And that's what happened to the 43H
Okay,
class, a lot of us. We hit that and they shipped us right in as crew. We got there together. I just got to get into 24 and fly a couple of times in close before they sent us into Charleston, South Carolina. There's where I took off the first time in the B-24.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, at Charleston, South Carolina, and they were needing men at that time. I mean, they were needing some help, and they were taking, that's the way it was. And we went in there till right in there about the middle of December. Then we went to New York, picked up our plane, and I was finance officer with the crew. And they shipped us there, not shipped us, but they give us our instructions to go to Florida and pick up our secret orders. And we weren't to open them until we were all ready. They gave us a heading, and we headed out. And we went down into South America, across the southern route.
Worked your way to Africa.
Natal, Brazil to Dakar, Africa.
Yeah.
And from Dakar up through Casablanca and across the northern part
Tunisia,
into Tunis.
So you flew over then?
Yes.
Dad went by ship, 'cause he was a replacement group. They went by, in fact,
By ship, yeah.
what was ironic, this would get a kick out of it. When the original crew took SADSAC over, the B-17, they, when they completed their 50 missions within a day or so of each other,
Yeah.
they came back on a converted cruise ship. The converted cruise ship was originally named the Princess of Japan, and they renamed it like the Princess of Scotland.
Yeah.
Dad came over on the Princess of Scotland. The rest of the crew went back on the Princess of
Well,
Scotland.
you know,
Yeah.
well, you know. And now what I was going to tell you, we took off, and we came here. See now, this would come down pretty well like this.
Now this was, Fumi probably showed up on your maps.
Okay,
It's now called
Now we
Ratchika.
took off, and we headed for pretty well a due north course.
Okay.
And we weren't too far. We weren't too far from the German lines when we turned and come back. We were suckers that day for the 8th Air Force.
That was coming in to hit.
Yeah, coming in
okay.
from England.
Okay.
And they came. We did a good job of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they came in after us. They swarmed us in.
And they
We
got
hit
into
like
the
a
target, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's in one of the books down here.
Right.
That's explained
In
in one
other
of the
words,
books.
our bomb bays were open. We had come to the. You asked me one time, and I sat down and I just wouldn't hardly do that. And the bomb bays were open. They'd never been closed, but the bombardier hadn't turned them loose.
Okay.
And as the boy says, all hell broke loose.
Yeah, that's when you were jumped.
Oh, in other words, they hit us
Yeah.
everywhere in the world. We rid of the bombs.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I remember with the full crew with us, knowing
Yeah.
the situation,
Yeah.
there was a yellow nose come in there and a skid slip right in on my side. And
Yeah.
I stuck my head in there with the wheel still on the rudders because
Yeah.
I knew he was going to get me.
Yeah.
In other words, you know how a guy flinch up if he thinks he's going to
Sure.
get hit.
Sure.
And that's what happened whenever I got, then
So that's
I can't tell you exactly what happened. I don't know, but the pilot was gone.
their attack was
And,
mirrors the attack on Dad's plane.
Yes.
Because in the mission report, and let
Yeah.
me find this because
Well, it was an attack.
Well, no, they knew what they were doing. The yellow nose is what I said. Is
Yes.
everybody, here it is. Okay, mission report. Let's find it here. Here it is, March 18th. Okay.
Okay.
This was
Now
the
this is
mission
March
report.
19th now.
I know,
Okay.
but this will
18th.
describe
Okay.
the attack,
Okay,
how
all right.
they attacked.
How they
Okay.
attacked, all right.
This was from the official record. It says here, Villarobel Landing Ground Mission number 162. That was the 18th of March. Okay, back on the 16th, the group bombed the same landing ground, did a very good job. At this time, they post-holed the field, and on this date, the aircraft in the dispersal area were attacked. Dad was on this mission, by the way, on January 16th.
Oh, I've seen targets in Austria? Or target was in Austria?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says here they had been attacking bomber formations en route to vital targets in Austria and southern Germany. So the part of this mission was to destroy part of the enemy resistance. It was far from a milk run today, for there were plenty of fighters and flak. The fighters started to attack some 33 minutes before the target time and continued until 2 minutes after the bombs were dropped, except that they didn't attack during the bomb run while flak was being shot. They first lobbed rockets and when out of range, then came in for close attacks, low and level, mostly from the 3 to 9 o'clock position. Okay, so if they came on the co-pilot and said 3 to 9 o'clock, okay?
Yes, 3 o'clock.
As close as 500 yards.
Yes.
In most incidences, they would peel off, go down under the formation, after which they returned for another attack. They were fairly aggressive and included ME-109s, Focke-Wulf 190s, ME-110s, ME-210s, Ju-88s, with ME-109s predominating. The flak over the target was slight to moderate, but very accurate. This resistance caused the injury of 2 men and the loss of 3 aircraft and the damage of 24 aircraft, 5 severe, 19 minor. In order, gunners shot down 4 enemy fighters. Now, I've talked to this guy. Robert Davies was the first person from the 775th wounded. And the guys on Dad's plane that day were the first crew from the 775th to be shot down. I'll show you their
In
book
our
there.
group, the next day after the March 19th.
19th? Yeah.
They didn't have enough planes to
Go up? Yeah, oh yeah, they were hit. Now, this guy I have found, this first plane here, this is kind of a sad story. I'll be seeing his sister tomorrow. Adam Pinzana, that should be a P. He is the only survivor of this first plane that came down. He made the journey out with you guys. He was a bombardier. He made the trip back to the States with my father. Dad's orders and his name appear on the same thing. 2 months later, after dispersal in Del Mar, he was killed in an accident in Florida. The controller at the tower fell asleep and 2 B-17s collided. So after being shot down, the journey out, he got back stateside and was killed. Over here. I'm seeing his sister tomorrow. And
that's near St. Louis.
no, this is that's Alan Clute. Now Alan Clute will show on the next plane.
Okay.
That's Pinzana with a P. Now here's Dad's plane. The 429 Squadron lost 2 planes. One was plane number 4229584. That's sad sack. It was last sighted at 09:45 hours, approximately 45 degrees, 43 minutes north, 14 degrees, 26 minutes east, which is 25 miles north of Fumi, Italy. So at that time, they were last noticed. This is Fumi. It's been renamed Retrospect. They were approximately here. Okay, right about the Cernica area. That's the last time the squadron saw his plane. They continued north and ended up coming down right up here. Okay, so they flew almost a direct northern line. It says here, at first gasoline was noted pouring out of the number 2 tank and the plane pulled out of formation to the left and dropped its bombs. A few seconds later, 2 men bailed out through the bomb bay. The plane, and I keep count of that, that's 2. The plane turned to the right and passed in the vicinity of the number 1 and number 2 squadrons. It was in the number 3 squadron at the time. Now that makes sense because the group by this point, 25 miles north at Cernica, were making their turn to the target, which was Udine. So they continued this way, passing under the squadron. Okay, and that's how I traced to find the plane. 2 more parachutes came out of the bomb bay. Now that's 4. Okay, 2 from the waist, that's 6. And 1 from the tail, that's 7. Okay, there was 10 on the crew. That explains there were 3 left. One of them was Rossi. That's 7, or that's 8. One of them was Dad, one of them was McKee. They went back to get McKee out. Rossi out. Yeah. So that's why it only shows that many chutes. Dad bailed out later. That's why he was the furthest north of the whole group. Okay, then it says the plane was last seen headed for the interior of Yugoslavia, apparently under control. No fires were noticed. However, it was smoking slightly and being attacked by 10 to 12 fighters. The missing men were, and there's Dad and the crew. Now over here is the next plane. The other plane, and the name of that one was Yankee Doodle. The other plane from the 429th, and plane number was plane number 24435, was suspected to have been last sighted at 0948 hours, 45 degrees 50 minutes, 13 degrees 20 minutes east, which is 40 miles north of Fuji. So that puts that one right on the same target as Dad. After the target, it was hit right here, and that's why they landed as Sophie Loca.
Right.
Sophie Loca. Okay. It says here, it lists the names. It says because of the attack, heavy fighter attack that was at the time, and because it was lost so close to 584, nothing was known about this. Well, two of these guys, McConnell and Lamont, made the journey out with you guys. They were decorated with the Silver Star. They were in the picture. Alan Clute, I have found. He's the one that lives in St. Louis. And he is in the who's who of scientists right now. He's the first man to map the moon in 1968. He's a real brilliant dude.
Good.
And he hasn't talked about it since that time. The pilot, the co-pilot were killed that day. They're buried in St. Louis. Walter Swan was taken prisoner of war with Clute. When Clute bailed out, both of his legs were broken and the Germans got him. Swan was a navigator. He went wire happy, installing Loop 3. When he came back to the States after the war, he ended up dying 2 years later. He went nuts. He went wire happy in prison. Couldn't take it. He went absolutely nuts. But ironically enough, is Griffith, Doyle, and Swan. Swan was reburied. His hometown was in Beverly, Massachusetts. He was reburied in St. Louis with the pilot and co-pilot. All three of them are in the same grave. Isn't that something? Clute sent me a picture of it, so we're going to try and see him maybe tonight or next time we're back. All the rest of the guys, these two guys made it. They're in the book. All the rest of the guys we don't know. Now, an interesting story. A.R. Mancuso, right here, of Brooklyn, New York. He and Rossi were best friends. He's the guy that lost his arm. Okay? He got a kill that day, a 190. He was recorded with a 190. And I guess, as Leo said, he was so mad. See, he knew Leo was on SATSAC, seeing that plane go down, but he ended up getting one. Isn't that ironic? And then it goes into the results of the target. Now, the next correspondence that was there was dated April 7th, 1944. Good news was received this date. 6 men from the 429th were in safe hands. They've been reported missing since March 18th, mission number 162. There's Dad, Lauterbach, Smith, and Jensen. And another crew. There's McConnell and Lamont. Now, this was April 7th. You guys still were not anywhere close to being home yet. And this was the citation, and this was why we're trying to get these other guys that were not decorated. This was May 12th, 1944. Today, word was received that the Silver Star has been awarded to the following named personnel. Now, the second bomb did not award very many Silver Stars. In fact, the 775th only awarded 4 Silver Stars in the whole duration of the war. So this is a very rare medal that it says here. And the medal's not important now. From the medal standpoint, the medal's important for the crew that didn't get decorated. That's what I'm trying to get to. For gallantry in action at great risk of life over overwhelming odds while flying B-17 type aircraft. And what's ironic here is what you see at the end. By bombing a vitally important landing ground area in Villarabla, Italy, mission number 162, March 1844. Attacked by 40 enemy fighters before reaching the target area. These heroic and gallant officers and men, although their plane was seriously damaged, set on fire, part of the bomb bay and cockpit were blown away by explosions, stayed at their post, fought after wave of enemy fighter attack, pressing into vicinity to the kill, and gallantly fought on until flames and loss of altitude forced them to abandon their plane. After parachuting out over deep enemy territory, these gallant officers and men endured grueling hardships for over 46 days, working their way through enemy lines, continually under sniper fire and danger of enemy patrols. But finally reaching friendly territory, they made their way back to the unit. By their conspicuous gallantry and courage in defense of and protection of their plane. Now, this is what is ironic. In all of the awards that were presented by the second bomb group, the plane was never mentioned. And this is a token again. That's what Stredbeck said. He said, my God, and he's a priest in the Mormon church, whatever we call it. He said the plane was made mention of in this citation. SATSAC.
Well, there was never anything for us. We were the only 2, Norderville and I.
Yeah, but back then.
And there was never anything mentioned, never any formal.
You know why? You know why? You know what I've been able to find out? Back to this correspondence, April 7th, okay? All of these men were from the 429. But the crews were half made up of 429, 775. The 775th records had not reached Foggia yet. Those guys, some of these guys were on their first or second mission yet. So when it came time, when you guys all came back to Barry, they had, you know, eager beavers at headquarters going, okay, well here we go, these guys have been missing for 46 days, they're due for a Silver Star. No mention of the other guys because their records had not even been arrived at Foggia yet. When Leo Rossi came through 3 months later, after coming into Naples, he was simply listed as a wounded airman. They did not correlate him with the mission. They did not correlate him with the citation. He was just left like the other guys. So what I did is I got the Speaker of the House, who's from Washington. I got one of his aides, and I said, look, I said, you may think this is nuts, but somebody made a mistake back at Barry in 1944. And I said, I'm not looking at it for a medal for medal's sake. I'm looking at it that these guys were missing something through a error. And I gave him the mission report, I gave him the citation reports, I gave him all the facts on the 775th. I got letters from the flight commander, everything else. They came back to me and they said, well, it has been, you know, 46 years or 47 years. I said, so. They said, well, it's a lot of extra paperwork. I said, so. I said, are they not entitled to a Silver Star? Well, yes, but it's 47 years later. I said, what does it take to convince you guys that, my God, Leo Rossi lost an arm, they were on the plane, they made the journey out, I've got books, documentation, I've sent all this stuff. They said, well, we need to talk to an eyewitness. You're not an eyewitness. I said, okay, what if I locate one of the Silver Star recipients on that plane, Albert Smith? Oh, that's fine. I said, okay, tell me where he is. The VA says he's alive. I can't find him. You know, we've got everybody hunting for him. Can you tell me where he is? Oh yeah, we know where he is. But we will not contact him because of the Freedom of Information Act. I said, you're telling me that that's what holds up presenting this thing. And the idea was to get them presented their Silver Star at the reunion of the 2nd Bomb Group this September at Wright-Patterson Field. And the original crew of SATSAC will all make it there. Guys from the 429th will make it there. Guys that were on that mission that day will make it there because it's very important. Not so much for the guys and the individuals, but for the group and the squadron and everything. This guy turns around and he says, well, you'll need to contact him, and you'll need to get a statement that he was actually there. He's listed, you know, I mean, he was there. The crew is listed. I said, I have found all but 2 of the guys on Dad's crew. I found them through luck. I found them through people searching. I've accounted for the deceased ones. I've got their next of kin. Everybody, including the squadron commander, says they want to see these guys decorated. There was a typo. The 775th service typo. So, well, we need to talk to an actual participant on the plane. And so I said, okay, talk to Raymond McKee. He was the bombardier. Well, he was a prisoner of war. I'm going, give me a break. You know, I said, okay, talk to the taildecker. Talk to the taildecker. Oh, well, he was an airman. We need to talk to an officer. I said, well, Smith was the upper turret. He was the airman, right? Airman engineer. So, we got to find Smith. We got to find Smith. But I cannot believe that they, you know, it was a typo. And so what if it's 47 years later? They present the Medal of Honor a lot of years later. But, you know, I just cannot believe. They know where he is. They won't have me find the guy. I'm about ready to go. We'll find him. We'll find him. So we got an FBI guy now. One of the guys in the 775th, 20 years with the FBI. He said he'll find him. He said he's found a lot of guys. He's found over 60 guys in the 775. But isn't that amazing that they will not do that? And yet, you mark my words, that congressman, that Speaker of the House, as soon as we find all these guys, you better believe he'll be in the first row of the picture taking when this reunion starts.
That's what gets you going.
Yeah, but I don't care. If he wants to get his picture taken, I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as you get the Yugoslavia or the partisans get it, I could give a rip. Okay, so that was the mission that day. Now, let's get to the good stuff. The good stuff is, where does it all start? Let's start it with here. Let's start it with how it started. Okay. This was behind Dad's Silver Star that he never even showed me until after he passed away. And this became a wild thing. This, first of all, was a article in Popular Mechanics or one of the magazines in 1944. Talks about SATSAC. Okay. Now, this was the original sad sack. There's Juster, the bombardier that flew his first mission. And this was part of a recruitment thing, and about a P-38. And essentially, this was in either Life or Popular Mechanics or one of the magazines. And that was kind of interesting. This was behind his Silver Star, so that's how I picked up the word sad sack in circulation. This was also behind his Silver Star, and this was where the pictures that were in here had come from. This was mailed in 1946 from England, and you get a kick out of this. You get a kick out of this because the typical English whip, okay, and it pertains to you. Thorncliffe, England, Cambridge, England. Dear Magnussen, February 24th, 1946. I expect you have forgotten all about these photographs by now, as it is getting on for 2 years since they were taken. This gets me. I'm sorry I've been all this time in getting them ready for you. And sorry, too, that they aren't as good as they should be. I'm afraid the film was rather badly developed in rather a hurry in Italy then. Took so many photographs in Yugoslavia, I wasn't able to sort them all out until I came back home to England a few months ago. Since then, I have been getting a print made of each of about 1,000 pictures for an album, then working through them again, sorting out which ones to be sent around to people such as yourself. A rather long and laborious process, I'm afraid. I hope by now you're demilitarized and settling down as a civilian again. Did you have anything more to do with Yugoslavia after you left us? ? I stayed at Tito's headquarters right till June of 45, which meant a rather, I'm not sure what that word is, but a rather interesting jaunt through Bosnia and the Dalmatian Islands in Serbia, ending up with 8 months in Belgrade. Shortly after you left Drvar, the Germans put a parachute and glider attack in place at 0630 hours on the 23rd of May. You probably heard about it in the papers. We had a great time and rather strenuous one in the mountains from 0700 hours until about a fortnight later. I was fortunate enough to save the camera and the film on that occasion. I've been released from the Army, fortunately back studying at Cambridge until next June. After that, I expect to go back to Yugoslavia with our embassy, if I ever get to the States.
Who's that from?
Hillary King. He's the one that helped get these guys out. He sent the broadcast to Nikolov and Barry, and he commandeered the 4 or 5 C-47s to get you guys out. Now to this day, on that airfield is a C-47, and I'm on to that. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, Dad had this behind his Silver Star, tucked away in a shoebox all those years. And when Mom and I pulled them out, you know, then these pictures surfaced, which were these pictures are in the Imperial War Museum now in England. They're registered, yeah. And this is you. I'm positive this is you. And there's Dad and Randolph Churchill. And Tito is in one of these things in the back of this crowd here. And, you know, they're very historic photographs. Now, he had those blown up, and he's got several other ones. But
It's better now.
yeah, now what's ironic is I found him, I called, when this whole thing started back in December, I called the British Embassy in Seattle, and I said, you know, I don't know if this guy even exists anymore, but do you know anything about a Hillary King? And they put me to the head of the embassy, and they said, Hillary King? I said, yeah. I said, the guy said, he's in the British Who's Who. I said, what is your reason for wanting to contact him? And I said, well, he had something to do with my father during the Second World War. And he said, in Yugoslavia? And I said, yes. He says, just a moment. And there was a pause, and then I heard a bunch of overseas operators, and they put me directly in contact. And they, Hillary answered. He says, all he could get was Magnussen in Seattle. And he said, Cliff, right away. My dad said. And I said, no. I said, I'm his son. Dad passed away in 85. And he said, my God. He said, I'm just going through my memoirs now in Yugoslavia. And he said, I got this call. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, A, I want to introduce myself to you and thank you. And B, I'm researching, putting together not only Dad's crew, but also the people that were coming out. And that's when he started. He just started, he says, do you have pictures? And I said, yes. And that's when he began to describe these things. And he's been corresponding with me by either phone call or writing every 2 weeks. And, you know, the whole thing has grown. So, Tito's headquarters is right up here, right in that cut. And this was you guys at Petrovac, which was on that other map. And as I said, it's very historic. Now, he said he will get a print, a big print made, and that's at the time when I was working through the Boeing Museum of Flight. And I said, well, let me work through them here in Seattle. If not, he will have the British government make big prints of these for all you guys. Now, once I've identified you, he wanted me to see which one of these is you, then he will look through his other photographs, okay? Because it mentioned in the letter back in 46 he took over 1,000 photographs of other areas, so he may have you in those other areas. Now, he didn't go about and say, all right, everybody line up. Now, this one must have been a lineup somehow. But like photos like this and photos like this, I said, why is everybody kind of laughing here in this picture with Colonel Parker and Randolph Churchill and stuff? He said, well, your dad somehow ended up one of the senior officers. He said, you Americans didn't want to have any responsibility for other crews, and they wanted to, the English, you know, wanted everybody to march straight and all this. Well, you know, you guys were Air Corps, right? I mean, and so he said the reason they were laughing is when one of the guards came into the British mission at Tito's headquarters and said there's airmen out there, they didn't realize how many of you guys there were.
Yeah.
And so when Dad says, well, there's about 80 of us, they're all laughing. You're going, my God, how are we going to feed these guys, hide these guys, and get them out of here? That's why they were all laughing in this picture. You know, I mean, they had idea that there was a large group, but they didn't realize how large. Yeah. So he said that's the reason for the laughing. And every one of these guys, if you look at the picture, including my dad, is laughing at that point. And then this is more pertinent because this shows a lot of the crews themselves. Now, do you remember that at all? Do you remember?
I'm sorry.
You don't remember being close to Tito's headquarters?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay.
There's a chief.
Okay.
And but now we had been harassed and everything. I was at a pretty low.
Yeah, because this was after the split episode and all that, right? Okay.
We was at a pretty low ebb now, and that's the reason. And I tell you, I've been blamed.
Yeah.
And I'm not blamed.
Yeah.
But I've been pointed finger. You have got to be too positive on anything to say you know. Well, I said that. I'm
You've
just
been
that
through
way.
a lot, yeah.
I'm just that way, you know. I said I'm just that way. And to save me, I just cannot. Now the building, that hit me.
This one hit you. Now this is
Okay.
at Petrovac. Okay,
Yeah.
this is at Petrovac.
Yeah.
Now this photo, I have a hunch you may be in this photo someplace, only from the fact that you mentioned you were with Dad at that period of time, and this might have been one of the groups. Do you remember marching back north again to this field? Okay, well then this was the group.
In other words, when they told us, now wait a minute, you're talking about marching back
Well, you had to march.
out to the field.
At some point when you got close to Tito's headquarters, you had to go back north again. And that's where this airfield was. In fact, the airfield, see where this picture was taken?
Okay.
This was just a little ways
How
from the
far?
airfield.
How far? Now that wasn't too far from the airfield there, but it
Right.
was a little. It was a jog. It was a walk.
Right. And at one end of the field was a telephone pole or something?
Well, now
One of the guys mentioned that.
Now, I'm honest with you, and during the day, I don't remember getting a real visual look at that airfield.
Well, it was a real small thing. In fact,
Well, I know
in fact,
it had to be.
in fact, one of the guys mentioned that the women of the village had to go out and either light smudge pots or clear.
Right.
And at one end of it was some trees. Well, let me get the bigger photos. Let me get the bigger photos
Photo
out.
is again, and
Let me put this and wherever that other picture of Sad Sack went, because I'm getting all those.
yeah, you want to keep your material there. I was
Well,
trying to keep
once we get it
together
printed,
with
it'll
you.
be a lot better.
Yeah.
And maybe I put it in here. Did I put it in here?
I think you put it in the envelope.
I think I put it in the envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, I'll keep it separate. Trying to think of any of these other guys in these pictures where there was Pop again. That's a better shot. Okay, Here was his original crew. All of these guys were killed on the 8th or the 22nd of February. This was Melzer, his best buddy. And that was Julian, and that was Gertzen, and all of these guys. This was taken in Dyersburg, Tennessee. Yeah, so that was Pop then. And boy, did he age after that. Now there's Melzer again. This guy's mother kept contact with my grandmother for years afterward, trying to find out what went on, and Dad never told her. Okay, and there they are again. This is in Kearney, Nebraska. Okay, I don't know if any of those. And that was one of their training planes. That was at Pyote, Texas. Now, this was the presentation with Twining. This is a little better shot. That's Lauterbach. This would have been Ferguson. One of these is Ferguson, and the other is Smith of Dad's plane, and these two are from the other plane. But I believe this is Ferguson, and I believe this is Albert Smith. So I don't know if that rings a bell at all. Do any of those faces at all? There again would be either Albert Smith, the upper turret gunner, the one we're looking for, or Ferguson. This was Lamont, and this one was that other guy. Do any of those faces ring a bell at all? There's Lauterbach. There's a better one of Lauterbach. Now see, he looks like he's still got burns on his, he would have been the co-pilot, that's Lauterbach. It looks like by the picture he's still got burns on his forehead, which explains the fire that was going on, yeah. Now this guy was Mike Miller. This was taken on the Isle of Capri a week before he got down. Yeah. And these guys were all in Dad's original group too. They must have ended up flying together. There's the Isle of Capri. Another shot of Dad there. Pretty serious then, because that would have been after Steyr and Regensburg, and that would have been after losing his original crew. And then I have no idea where these were taken. I have no idea where this was taken in the plane. This could have been Lauterbach. I don't know whether this was in Europe or the United States. By the looks of that, I'd say it was in the United States, maybe when he came back home. And these buildings are definitely not Europe. You guys didn't have buildings like that in Italy. So these must have been stateside. Yeah. Okay. And then this is when they got married. That was my mom. Or that is my mom. There's a Pop then after. This would have been in 45. 45, 46, right? Okay. So, well, it's starting to get together, but now let me find what I was originally hunting for here, which was Hillary's bigger pictures.
I wish that I could really
Okay, there's yours.
ID, but
Okay, let's just see here. Oh, here. This is Lawrence Medal. This is sad. This is sad and also pretty neat. His brother sent me this stuff. He was the ball turret gunner that was killed that day. Now, there's Mike Miller again. And there's Sporer. Those guys Dad flew with prior to going down. This was the ball turret gunner that was killed that day. This guy I've talked to up in Wisconsin. And this guy's Ben Scheimer. He's over in Indiana. He's still alive. This was the guy that was killed. Again, Lawrence Medal was brother sent me that. But what's more ironic here is they named the American Legion post in his honor in Butte, North Dakota. It's the Lawrence Medal American Legion post. And they're very interested in what I can dig up on this reunion stuff. Okay, Lawrence Medal. And then this was the honor guard who buried him after he was reinterred. So someday I'm going to get all the names of that. I thought that was really nice that they got all that. So he's accounted for. Okay, that's Lawrence Medal. He's accounted for. And these were some of the letters that came back. His aunt was a nun, and she got these letters together and then finally explained to his parents what had happened. Yeah, very sad letters. But anyway, he's accounted for now. So he's one of the 10 on the crew. And then we've got, of course, the plane. I showed you some of the things of that, but then it gets more interesting. So there's Bible. There's the plain sat set. Okay, let's find second bond group. Sweet pea. That was the one that was sodden too.
Yeah, you were showing me that just for lunch.
Okay, now, okay, this is fascinating. This is a 775. Now, you're not going to believe this. Reverend Parker, not Earl Parker, but another Parker, they sent me a patch, a squadron patch from that time. And it is the most organized squadron I have ever seen in my life. The Swoos group, they call themselves. There's an actress named Swoosie Kurtz, who is the daughter of the founder of this squadron. She's on TV and movies and stuff. But look how they're organized.
They're organized.
But look at this. This was put out in 1946. And the Irish Orphans is what they call themselves. It's the entire history of their group, starting in World War II. Okay? Shows all the good. 775th. More importantly, the 463rd group of that, okay? It's got the history of everything. This was published in 1946.
What was your number?
454.
454th, yeah. Look at this. There's the Swoos goose for Kurtz. But it gets more important. When you get back here, it's got stateside shots and then it's got Italian shots. I told you. Now, this guy, look at this. March 18th, 1944, first combat mission. He and the other guy were the first two wounded. Okay, on the mission the dad went down on. He was killed 2 missions later. But in here, it's got, let's go back right here to 1944. Here we go, right here. Is this it? It's the next page guide. Okay. First casualties. Combat crews of the 775th were attached to the 2nd Bomb Group in order to acquire experience in combat. Some of our men flew missions with that veteran group. It was while engaged in a mission on Villa Orba, March 18, 1944, that our squadron suffered 8 men missing. Here was the rest of Dad's crew. Raymond E. Horn, Raymond McKee, Walter Swan, who was on that other plane, Alan Clute, he's the guy in St. Louis, Merchek, Okay, and then it says, Harold Chandler returned. There's Earl Parker, Armour, Vernon Jansen, they were on Dad's crew, while on the same mission, 2 officers qualified for Purple Hearts, Davies, who I've talked to, and then Taylor, who was killed. In that, the second mission was Klagenfurt. That was the next day, March 19th. Was that your target, Klagenfurt? Must have been close.
It's close in there.
Okay. Well, then these guys went down. Okay?
Right.
These guys went down. But isn't that amazing? That was their first action.
The first mission.
The first mission was on the 18th of
See,
March.
ours was the 7th.
Yeah.
Ours was the 7th.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. We'd had a couple of, we got a couple of what they call the milk runs in the rest of them.
Yeah.
I know, hey, the ball turret, lower ball turret,
Yeah.
there was a piece of flak. Oh, it was in an L
Yeah.
shape. Came through that plexus.
Yeah.
Just glazed him. Went around and around. And I had a piece of that with that straw bread.
That you had saved.
Yeah. And my A2 jacket. And all of my uniforms I had left here in the old home
Yeah.
when I went to Mendota.
Yeah.
See, I was a minister in Mendota.
Right.
I went to Mendota there for a couple of
So where was this home? This was up there?
Just right here.
Oh, right here.
This is right here.
Yeah.
We're sitting on the same ground as that is.
Oh,
Well,
this
and-
house was built over that house?
No, this is burned.
Yeah.
And this is built over the ground
That's
of
what I
this
meant,
house.
yeah.
Yes, pardon me. And that was burned in that home. Well, I knew where the trunk was that I had my stuff in. And you see those shoes I was telling you about that I got,
Yeah.
I still had those. I still
And
had
it's all locked?
no, they didn't write it. See, it's copper wire with deerskin.
Yeah.
Best I could tell, deerskin.
Yeah.
And she had made those. That's what I traded for GI first, and they weren't near worn out. I'd put them through hard stuff, but they weren't near wore out. And my coveralls,
Yeah.
in other words, where I carried
So
my,
you had all that stuff.
and it burned in that home. Okay, and now some of the other things that I had pictures and some of the things like that, I had in a trunk. See the parsonage up there that they had in the city there where I went. It was built, started out of a chicken house, and they built it into a parsonage, livable home, you know.
Right.
And whenever that our son was born March the 17th. My mother was killed March the 17th. And my home burned March the 29th. And on I might go with you, with March.
March
And,
the 29th.
and yeah, 1975.
That's when your home burned?
Yes.
What was the date that this report came out?
And,
Where's that?
no, wait a minute, this is 1975, see?
I know, but I'm trying to see. Oh, March 28th is when the. Well,
And,
that's weird.
I said, well, there was one thing that hit my mind right straight. I said, Mom, I've got to find my parachute handle. I said, if I have to sift this, I've got to find it because it didn't burn. See, if you looked at it closely, did you look at it closely?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Pardon me.
This is amazing. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. All these dates. All these dates run the same dates.
See,
40
this
years.
is about all I could collect. I began to sweat because I thought that
Now,
I
did you
had
carry that during World War II?
Yes.
Well, this was Dad's.
This
This was
was
Dad's.
this was
and
right
he-
here.
Same one.
Yeah, this was right here. And it had songs. But now, I tell you what I did, you see, in talking and communicating with some of the parties in Yugoslavia.
Yeah?
All
Oh,
right,
excuse me.
I don't remember what happened here to this person, but I carried this right here. This was it.
Dad must have did the same thing
Yep.
because this is a,
And,
see, Aunt Hilma and Uncle Sam, he was a postmaster, he was very religious. They gave him this in 42. He carried this
A
the
song.
whole way through.
He has New Testament and Psalms,
That's amazing.
but this one doesn't have the Psalms.
That's amazing.
I don't believe. No, this one
That's
doesn't have it.
amazing.
Just the New Testament, the New Covenant. And this picture, that had me bothered. You know that I sent you. Now there's
No,
the
I've got it. I've got it right
Okay,
here.
there's the original. Here's the original, right there. Right there's the original. Now, that picture that I sent you there with those two on it,
Right.
to save me, I can't tell you, that's like a lot of this other.
Well, we've
Now,
got
this was,
that.
see, this was chrome, and this was stainless steel.
That's incredible.
This was stainless steel, and it was in good shape, and I had wrapped it around this and put it in the trunk.
Yeah.
And after the home burn, I knew about where that trunk was and how things fell, the bed and everything, because all I had to do in my home was come down, open the door, build a fire, or turn on the gas,
Yeah.
and air it out, clean out, and what have you, dust out. And I said, Mom, I've got to find this if I have to sift through everything. And you know, sir, I went to about where put that trunk upstairs. It was upstairs.
Yeah. Tracy
And he
Street.
came through, and I found this within 30 minutes.
So this
going
was
through
the
the fire
same.
twice.
This was the same chute that you, or the same handle that you pulled on March 18th.
I did that just like that when I come to.
And you carried all this stuff back with you?
This-
They let you carry all this stuff back out
Yes.
after you got?
Yeah, I had this.
Isn't that amazing?
And I had that lady's shoes that she gave me.
Well, you know, I tell you what's amazing is there was a guy who went back to Austria or northern Yugoslavia, okay, 2 years ago. And he went back to find the location. He was in the group where he buried his 45. And he found it. The tree had grown over it, he said, because the tree was much smaller. He found his
But
45.
he found a tree.
He found his 45. He had everybody in that village. They had been searching for him. Yeah, isn't that
Well, I
amazing?
was talking about my radio operator.
Yeah.
Our radio operator.
Right.
They were to go immediately and get him.
Yeah.
Uh,
These are the partisans?
No,
This was them?
He was the one that didn't have a shoe.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, this was the partisans or what? Yeah, they would have done that because in the case of Lawrence Meidel, they buried him
Told me they
immediately.
did, so that was part of relief.
They probably would have given
But
him a
I could
Catholic
not-
burial.
you see, whenever I came up,
Yeah,
it was gone.
yeah.
I didn't, and I looked back and there was fire everywhere. And when it went out, the doors all, you see the Bombay was open,
Okay.
released the bombs.
Okay.
All right, the door came down to the floor and this one came down. And I was centrifugal forward, well, this is it. I mean, I've done it. Going home.
Yeah, yeah,
It's something or that.
yeah, yeah, I know. It's like what
And I
some of
kick-
these guys
and I
said,
kick
the
that-
adrenaline.
I kick
Yeah,
that
the
door-
adrenaline.
Kick
Yeah.
that door out, come out, and immediately pull that shoe. And now that's all I really and truly, see, that's what hurts, I live with it. That's
Well, I
what
know.
hurts.
Well, that's what happened with Leo Rossi. It didn't dawn on him until Cause he had put it out of his mind, but then he hadn't put it out of his
Okay,
mind.
I had put it out of my mind. I hadn't thought of this as far as just stopping that night. It will flash up, and sometimes I'll still dream it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but it is very, very rare. Now, and then whenever you call,
Yeah.
you see, I said, that's real. I said, Mom, I don't know what I want.
Yeah. Well, see, with Leo, what happened with Leo is that now it's like it was yesterday again.
Okay,
It's from a different perspective, but was what he said and what Earl Parker said is things happen so quick. I mean, you're talking about a distance here and a speed of a plane and under attack and everything that is just incredible. I mean, you know what the distance is roughly to walk from the cockpit. I mean, I've walked it now. From the cockpit of an area B-17 back to the waist area. Now imagine doing that under fire, full of smoke and all that, and then still getting back coming out. How long would that take? Well, it takes an average person maybe 18 seconds. But during that period of
Now
time,
they were on automatic.
yeah, Dad hit the what they call George, the automatic pilot. He hit George. Yeah. After they passed under the squadron.
Bombs, well, we weren't, you see.
See, they couldn't get the bombs out. That was the other problem
Oh,
McKee said.
man.
They got hit by these Ju-88 shot rockets into the plane, and then they exploded inside the plane. And they couldn't get the bombs to toggle.
Oh, right to release.
They couldn't get to release, so that's when McKee and Dad went down, and that's what ended them back going back to the
Did they
plane.
manually release them?
Yeah, they had to manually release them. But I guess according to McKee, he said the entire bomb bay was a mess. It was just gone. Yeah, I mean, the bomb bay was gone, so they went back through the catwalk, and then that's when they found, and that's why I got to find Vernon Jensen. He was the radio operator, so he would have seen everything that occurred in the waist.
Yeah.
Earl Parker, the first thing he knew is communications were knocked out. He was a tail gunner. The first thing he knew that they were in trouble is he saw chutes going out underneath. He said, "My God, they're ours." So he punched open that little plywood hatch.
Okay.
Just, the tail wheel on a B-17 and then,
Okay, yes.
yeah. And he pushed that over, and just as he opened the door, he saw one of the guys get hit in the right waist door where you enter and exit the plane. That had to have been Lawrence Mine getting hit at that point. Now what Leo remembers is he said when they got hit, and everybody mentioned this, there was a tremendous whoosh because their tanks got hit and then this rocket hit the bomb bay. And he said, okay, because he was on a 46 mission, he was on the left waist position. He said, I'm going to get that right waist hatch open. And at that time the bell rang, the bailout bell. And he went back from his left waist position back to the right waist hatch, and he couldn't get it open. He could not get it open. It was jammed shut. So he went back to the left waist position. Now, I don't know what the right waist gunner was doing at this time. I think he got a kill at that point because there was a credited kill from SADSAT of a 190. He reached up to get a pair of pliers that he had stashed, and that's when he got hit by a 20 millimeter and it tore his arm up. So he was on the floor. Then somehow the ball turret gunner must have come up out of the ball, got the hatch open because one of the letters said that Lawrence went to get a hammer, and when he went back to the hatch was open, and that's when he got hit. So Ferguson must have got the hatch open. Dad mentioned that there was a guy frozen in the door, and he kicked him out of the door. In other words, there was a guy that was frozen to jump. That could have been metal, Lawrence Metal, because what would have been frozen, he would have been hit at that point. So Earl saw this. He bailed out the tail. Ferguson must have gone out the waist hatch with metal. Dad got Rossi out. I don't know how he got Rossi out. And then went back forward with McKee, and then they went out the nose hatch or the bomb bay. Okay, so that's all I know is all that happened in, you tell me, a minute? 2 minutes? I don't know. It's amazing. But
That is, see, this was chrome. The handle was bright chrome.
So before the fire it was chrome? Or
It didn't burn it enough. Me coming out of the plane, this went through I'll tell you, this went through the fire twice. In other words, I went through the fire as I went down and, see now the 24 is different than the 17.
Okay.
Because it's got your ramp up, or your deck up there, not ramp, but see, and you've got I believe it's 3/4 inch plywood. It comes down, you see, and then there's your door. All right, right behind that door is your Bombay racks.
Okay.
And you've got your,
Okay, so
and
they're
you've got your
lower.
ramp.
I got you.
And you got your ramp, then it goes back to your waist.
Okay.
Your waist, you see.
Okay.
And whenever I was pinned here on the floor,
Okay.
in other words, it comes. I couldn't. That was it. Well, I'm going home.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Death staring you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Right.
That's it.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, just I rammed that thing.
You know.
Now I could speculate on two different things that happened. I'm not one to speculate.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is the Lord was looking out after me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because ordinarily, who would have known to shoot the minute that he left? See, I didn't hit the track down there,
Yeah.
there beside your bomb rack.
Yeah.
I went on,
You went on through.
and that come. But I knew I was already almost there. And the only reason that I'm going to speculate a little bit here, because the evidence shows it.
Yeah.
The only reason that I was swinging in that tree was because here's the valley,
Yeah.
here's the ridge.
Yeah.
I came out here, and my plane went in there.
That quick. Amazing.
It wasn't any farther than from here to, I guess up the
Where
side
did
of the mountain.
Nordwell go out? Did he ever tell you? Did he go out?
You know, sir, the boy don't talk a whole lot. I don't
I
remember.
know. Well, I'll be seeing him
I
next
don't
week.
remember.
So
Now, maybe he will tell you. But not. When I remember him, I looked up, I heard the racket, I looked up because I was getting ready to move. And I looked up and I said, Nordwell. And I was there at where I came out of where I was caught with a tree.
Was where
and
he
I
was.
was trying to get that white stuff out of the tree so
yeah.
that
Yeah.
you
The
could see
shoot.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I did.
Did you guys bury the chute?
And,
Was that part of
we
the first
hit
thing you did? Yeah. Okay.
As
Okay.
best we could, as I remembered.
But you kept that. You kept the hand.
Yes, sir.
What'd you do? Tuck it in your.
Oh, no. You remember on your
Yeah,
your
the
flag
coveralls,
coverall,
yeah.
you had the zipper. You
Yeah.
had your zipper.
Yeah.
I run her down there.
That's
And I carried this the
That's
whole blessed way. That thing, if it could talk, if it knew, in other words, if you'd had a machine that could have talked, he could
Yeah.
tell you some
Oh,
of the
yeah.
things you're asking here.
Oh, I know. I know. What I find is amazing is these two.
If they could talk. Now the reason that mine that has the sheets here, I tore the first. In other words, you see here.
Well, I don't know
Here's
what-
all right, I wouldn't take this now.
Yeah.
The book I carried, while evading.
Oh, I see. You wrote it in. You wrote it in there.
Yeah, I don't know when. I didn't put a date. See,
I don't
didn't
know
even-
where
I wasn't
Dad
even
had
conscious
this.
enough. I wasn't even conscious enough. Well, I had this one right here because I've sat down and shared it. The lady, with her girl there that I'd sat and talked with her granddad with that hit the senior bomb hit her here.
Yeah.
I hadn't said one word to that woman who hadn't, but she'd just been around with it. I don't
Yeah,
know whether it was her
yeah.
father, don't
Yeah.
know whether it was her father-in-law,
Yeah.
don't know anything about that family, but it was her daughter. And she picked that kid up, and he's still here.
Yeah.
And they lived upstairs, in the immediate upstairs. And that kid never bled enough, but it just left one small blood streak. And she run and grabbed me by the arm. She had seen me read this.
Yeah.
She run and grabbed me by the arm and,
Yeah, you went there, yeah.
and took me up at there at the bedside. That baby.
Merry Christmas. Well, this, I don't know where Dad had this, but this was in the box with his silver
With the
star.
silver star.
Yeah. Yeah.
This,
Which was just
this.
nothing
I carried.
written in it. I checked. The only thing I never moved was the position he had
Because
this
he had
over.
the strength. I don't blame him. Where does he have it?
Corinthians.
2 Corinthians. Yeah.
You know what's bizarre about this? I remember Corinthian Yacht Club in Seattle. It's the 2nd Corinthian Yacht Club. There was the 1st Corinthian Yacht Club, 2nd Corinthian. And the day he passed away, we were launching. In fact, where did I put it?
Yeah.
Right here. Where did I put it?
Well, that'll be something. That'll be
No,
something.
here we go.
to remember.
Here we go. Where is the?
Oh,
One of
but
these
I
things are-
got
Here it is.
Yes, sir.
Oops, is it in here?
Yesterday
It's
when
one
I
of these. I'll have to find it. There's a picture of the boat.
Pictures here of mine.
Does that show you back at that time? That's what. Okay, well let's trace you.
All right, now here now is New Orleans. All right, here's.
Okay, now this is you here, standing up.
Yes, all right, here is after we
Okay,
got
here we
back.
go, here we go.
There's my son. That's after I got back. Not too long, and not year after. That's not too. I hadn't gained too much there. But now I'll get you some pictures.
Hang on a minute now. Where's that? Let's find that bigger one.
I'll get you some
Of,
pictures. Here I am. What you want to see? Here I am. What you want to see? Right there. Could you pick me out there?
the upper row.
Alright, here.
Right here. Or right here. In the middle.
Right there. There's me and there's Nordwell. Alright,
Oh, wait a
there's
minute,
the
there's
right cap.
Nordwell.
There's the cap Nordwell wore. I was wrong. I was wrong in thinking. In
Okay,
other
let's
words,
keep
in my
these two
thinking.
out. Let's keep
Okay.
those two out.
Right here,
And then
no,
I'll find
right
out.
here. Now this is our plane. This is our plane, the one we flew, 193.
You're kidding.
Yeah, that's her. And this is after we got, and that was when we got to go back to the squadron, after we got back to Barry.
So this was taken after your journey out, this
Yes.
picture?
This one. All right, now, hey,
Incredible.
hey, you know why I've got this Class A uniform on?
No.
My ground chief, Hollyfield.
Yeah.
I'd like to look at you. My ground chief, Hollyfield, I was well acquainted. Now you see, now you've got to understand here, I've got 2 serial numbers.
Yeah,
I went
right,
in
you
and
mentioned that.
enlisted
Aaron,
rank.
yeah, right.
All right, I identified with enlisted rank seemingly more than I did with commission. Are you understanding me?
Yeah.
Okay, I had good rapport with everyone, but I had better rapport with the enlisted men.
True, yeah.
Okay, I said Hollyfield, and I've got a leather briefcase with my 2015,
Yeah.
and I had my Bible. I said Hollyfield, I said I want you to make me a promise. He said, what do you want, Wes?
Look at this. Here's his
I said, what do you want, Wes?
Oh,
And I said, I want you to be sure that my wife, if you can do it, if you can do it yourself personally, I want you to personally give this to my wife.
Yeah.
That was my briefcase and my Bible. Now I said, Hollyfield, if you can wear those clothes or what have you, I said, if something happened.
Yeah.
He said, oh, let's go. I said, Hollyfield, I said, hear me out. I'm not saying there is, I'm not saying there's not. And I said, now my clothes, you do with them what you want to, or you let the supply officer have them, or whatever. And she, usually, they went through channels, the supply officer come down, and like you said, sometimes they was plundered, pilfered,
Right,
whatever.
right,
I don't know why
right,
they do it,
right.
because that was a shame.
I know.
And,
The only thing I've been able to ascertain is some of the guys that did it were, who knows.
Well, they were just no good, you know it. Okay, so Hollyfield that night, when I come back, McLaughlin, the first sergeant, was the first sergeant of 737 Squadron.
Yeah.
He said, Hollyfield walked backwards and forwards all night. He said, Western back is down here. See, I'd gone through A&M, and I'd stay down there in wee hours a night with him, adjusting the superchargers, and getting things fixed better as far as to go. I'll tell you a good one after a while. But Sergeant said, I thought he was going to go nuts. He went up to the tent to get my clothes, and the supply officer came up there and said, hey, Hollyfield, you can't do that. He said, oh, yes, I can. He was a tech sergeant. He said, yes, I can. No, you can't. Well, and they said they had it ground and round. Well, and then they finally wound up, and Hollyfield looked at him straight in the face. He says, Lieutenant, he said, if I go get the first sergeant, and the first sergeant will verify the fact that Lieutenant West gave me a direct order to get his clothes, can you stop me? Lieutenant said, no. But he said, he said, I want to send a man after the sergeant. He said, a man had got Mac. Mac come up, he said, Mac, he said, don't you say a word, Hollyfield. They've been in.
Yeah.
He said, Mac, did Lieutenant West give Hollyfield a direct order to get his clothes? And Mac said, yes, sir.
That was the end of that.
But he didn't heard me say anything.
Oh.
But Mac knew me.
Yeah.
Mac, I had good rapport. While I was down, the mailman used the stuff that Mom sent me. I'd sent to her. I said, Mom, you send me a lantern.
Yeah.
And different things. You know how she set that lantern? She got one of those little tin cans at that, and she set that lantern in, and that got there. And that old boy, he said, hey, what? There's your lantern. He said, I told you wouldn't care. And he said, them cookies and cakes, and he said everything else. He said, I tell you, he said, it was really good. I said, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, because I'd sure like to have it. And Hollyfield put them down in mothballs,
Yeah.
put them in a box.
Yeah.
I got back into Barry that night. I was sicker than a hound dog. I drunk too. I ate too much. I didn't think
Right,
I would, but I ate
right.
too much, and I took that last mug of coffee, and oh, I had the GIs, and it was
Yeah.
going both ways. I've had problems with my stomach ever since.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
nevertheless, I called Mac. I called the squatter. I said, "Hey, Mac." He said, "Wes, is that you?" I said, "That's me." I said, "You tell old Hollyfield that I'll be down to see him." Oh, Mac, I talked to him a little bit. You know what he done? He went right straight and requisitioned a Jeep
Yeah.
before he ever told Hollyfield that I was back. He said, "I knowed good and well when I told Hollyfield that West was in Berrien that he said the devil himself wouldn't have kept him out there."
That's great.
And he got that Jeep, put them clothes in there, and who do you think woke me up the next morning? And they was absolutely no one was to get to it.
And they got
I'll
in
tell
there.
you what kind of guy. He was a bootlegger.
Yeah.
He run moonshine in the mountains of North and South Carolina,
Oh,
right there on the
God.
line.
Oh, be darned.
And old Hollyfield, he shook me that morning, and I was sicker than a hound dog. I looked up at him. I said, "Holly, how in the world did you get it?" He said, "Now you know me well enough, know not to ask too many
So he
questions."
got all the way through all.
Yeah, he had from the wall. And not only that, but he had the Jeep out there, and he said, "Just give me a little while." He said, "And I'll have you some good clothes." He said, "Man," he said, "you look like a tramp." I said, "I feel like one."
So you guys were wearing, you virtually just had the same stuff that you just come out with, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And he brought me those clothes, and those guys that didn't have any, those guys that did have, "Wes, where in the world did you buy them? How'd you get them?" So on and so forth.
Well, Dad, in Dad's thing, this is all he had. Let's see the date on this. See how that coincides.
Well,
this
let's
thing
see,
in
this
here.
one, you're right.
Okay, here it is. To Officers Sales Store, Bear, Lieutenant Clifford Magnussen has recently returned from missing in action. Requests that he be allowed to purchase whatever items he needs. Signs J.M. Kirk,
Okay. I didn't
15th
get
Air
that.
Force.
All I had my clothes.
That's all he had.
Yeah.
But all the rest of his
Now
stuff was
here's what we look like. Nordwell
Okay,
and I
let's
both.
pull this one out. Let's
Nordwell
pull
and I
this one
both.
out.
Whenever we came out.
Where was that one that had the big blow-ups? We gotta find the thing with
Okay.
Ken.
All right.
Okay, let's
Now
find
here's
it.
Hollyfield. There's
Where's
Hollyfield.
Hollyfield?
That's my crew chief, ground chief. I told you I'd tell you, Biggin.
Yeah.
Okay, we come in, after Hay got the
Oh, he's
plexiglass.
painting on a bomb mission.
Okay,
That's
but
great.
now you see, now they went ahead and flying missions. We had 7.
Okay.
First 7 are ours. I guess they put that 7th on there. No, wait a minute, that would have been old Moojus.
Yeah.
Say now, you remember me telling you about Hay and that
Yeah.
and that flap going through the plexiglass?
Right.
Okay. Next morning, 0193, up on the board, ready for mission. The officer, the ground chief officer, comes up to Holly. He said, "Holly, that can't be." "What do you mean?" "Well," he said, "didn't that have a hole in the plexiglass and that ball tore it whenever you come in and so on, so on, so on?" Holly said, "It sure did." "Well," he said, "you couldn't fix it because we don't have that material." "Well," he said, "have you inspected it, sir?" "Oh, well, he went and inspected it. I mean, in good shape.
Yeah.
It's fixed. Ready to
So
go."
what happened? You took it
Ready
off
to
another
go.
plane or something?
Okay, I'll tell you what happened. He said to me, he said, "Wes," he said, "that supply officer," he said, "ain't worth the powder and lead it'd take to blow him up." He said, "Would you sign a requisition for me?" He said, "If we went to Berry to that supply depot," he said, "I found out where it is and where I can get the stuff." He said, "Would you sign that requisition if I can get it?" Well, I said, "Yeah." And
So yeah,
he got the, I'll tell you what, he got a flatbed truck with sides, GI. Right, he got her all out of the motor pool. And on the day off, I went with him to Berry. And we went into that, and he had the stuff wrote down that he wanted. And he wrote, and he said, "Hey, Lieutenant," he said, "would you check him?" He said, "See that he gets his stuff in there and all of that." I said, "Yeah, I can do that, Holly." I didn't know what he was going to do. I didn't figure he had something down Berry he wanted to do. But he come and gathered around in that supply depot. And we got ready to go, got that truck loaded, and I looked at that, and I think, wait just a pick a minute. I never signed for that much stuff.
And then all this.
He had everything in the world you can imagine. And he had it planned of going home. Here's one that'll kill you. And then it had to be to the English. I don't know whether we'll let that get the English or not, to the Englishman. But we went with our supply.
Yeah.
And he says, "Wes, I want you to stop out here." And he said, "You wait a while. I'm going to let you drive." He said, "You wait a while." He said, "And you'll hear something hit this truck. then he said, you can kind of move on slow and I'll catch you. I said, okay. So he did. Well, we got back and he took this down here to our stall. He buried that, put a door over it, a plywood door over it, lashed it down, and put junk on top of it. And then the next morning, he got what he had thrown on the truck, and he had stole an Englishman supply tent.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, and he thought he was getting one of those regular
Yeah,
good tents
yeah.
instead of having a small tent,
Yeah.
a pup tent that all to sleep in for the ground crews like he had. Why, he said, I know what I'll do. He said, I'll just go up to Sergeant. He said, he's been wanting a mess tent, and he said, that'll work as a mess tent. He said, I'll trade him for one of them little ones. And that did work for roll.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That
so that was this guy?
that
Now,
was,
you haven't seen
that
him
was
since
that
the
guy.
war?
No, sir.
We haven't seen him in the fight
Oh,
yet.
I tell you, Holyfield.
Holyfield. He looks
And
like
he
a
was-
character.
You know what that officer done after he found out? Holyfield wouldn't tell him. He said, you just do this to me. Damn questions, you won't be told too many damn lies. And he says, you're free. He said, look for it if you want to. And he had it, he's standing on it. That officer was standing on it. Yes, sir. Oh,
Here
sure.
we
Picture
go.
of Holyfield.
Here we go.
Huh?
King.
Right here. I'll tell you another good. I'll tell you what, Judge Porter up here, he's major. Only, and he was on the ground. And I said to Major, I'll tell you what, I've been up there and on the ground towards them. And they look a lot better going down than they do coming down. And he wanted a reporter in St. Louis. He knowed her. But he didn't talk to me much. I didn't talk anything at all. I got to tell him about Holyfield. I didn't tell him nothing about this. Wasn't talking about this. He said, Wes, would you tell that reporter what you just got through telling me? Why? I said, yeah, but I don't care nothing about it.
Where's that one? Here it is. Okay, let's see now. Who's got a fresh set of eyes?
Mom, have we got a magnifying glass anywhere?
wanna
I used
see.
to have a magnifying. I bet that one.
I wanna see.
Here's
This
what-
has gotta be you and Nordwell.
This
It
is-
just
this is
the
where-
eyebrows and everything. This has gotta be you and Nordwell.
This is where it's buried. This is where it's buried.
Oh, you did it.
Right there at the plane, right there in the stove.
See these two? And don't forget, this was after 46 days.
Yeah. Here's another
The
one.
fact that you had a new A2 jacket.
Yeah, well, it was wasn't
Yes.
damaged. It sure
Yes,
wasn't-
look at the
it-
forehead.
It sure wasn't damaged.
Look at the foreheads. This is you. And
It
that's
sure
gotta be
was.
Nordwell.
I'll be honest
Now
with
see,
you.
he was wounded. Both of you guys had just been through 46. Well, this was the 46th day, roughly.
Yeah.
Look at the eyebrows.
All right.
That's
here's my
him.
class.
Huh?
Here's my class in Isaacdale. Got a Central Trades in New Orleans.
This is a better one.
in A&M. See, airplane mechanics. That's my class.
Yeah.
Right there. We can play ball.
All right. That has got to be you two right here. That has got to be. I'm looking at the cheekbones now. Now Nordwell was wounded.
Yes. In other words, now he was wounded when they come in there. And
When
bombed.
was this
It was
shot
itchy.
taken? When was
That was taken right after that we got back and we went to the squadron. We went down to the group.
You don't know what
That's
you got
our
on these,
squadron.
on these tapes, do you?
Do what?
I can blow that up for you real quick.
You can what?
I can blow it up for you real quick.
You mean this shot? You can? You can?
Or whatever.
Oh, right
Just
there.
set it on this, you got it running now. You